Welcome to another episode of the Keeg Talks. Today, the Keeg Talks, The Boys, Season 3. I'm your host, Dimitri Pereira, and we're going to talk about this recent season of The Boys, that one superhero show that's on Amazon Prime Video, that's bringing people to Amazon Prime Video. I can't do this alone. I'm not going to talk about The Boys Season 3 just alone. I could do that on TikTok if I really wanted to. No, instead, I have two awesome guests, one who's been here before, one who hasn't, but I'm looking forward to both of them. First, one who has, we got Terrell, Theories by T. Terrell, how you doing today?
I'm doing very good. I am struggling through a heat wave, but other than that, I'm surviving.
Do you drink tea during a heat wave, or is it too hot?
I drink an iced tea during the heat wave. I bet it takes really long to make like a homemade iced tea. So really what I mean by that is I order a refresher from Starbucks, and that like usually counts in my mind.
Yes. Yeah. Are you a hot tea guy though?
I prefer a hot tea for sure, but like even I know the science would not work in my favor there. It might kill me, honestly. Yeah. So I've only had ice-based beverages the last like week.
That's fair. Sometimes it's like really hot here, and I'll go to like Starbucks or whatever, and I'll be like, oh yeah, can I have a mocha? And they're like, it's an ice mocha, right? And I'm like, yeah. Sorry, I forgot. Yes, ice mocha, great. Hot mocha, maybe another day.
Yeah. Sometimes if it's a brisk, morning, where it's hot later in the day, but in the morning's a little bit chilly, you don't mind a hot one. But other than that, I'm like, I think we both know I want ice in this right now.
Like it's unspoken. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get that. I'm glad to have you, T.
Thank you.
I know that it's nighttime over there, so thanks for being here, taking some time out of your night.
It's summer, so no one told the sun that it's nighttime. It still feels like it's still in the middle of the afternoon right now.
Wait, what time is sundown for you?
Like closer to 9. I think we're probably venturing sunset. I can't really see outside right now because I've got every single blind in my house shut, but I can see through the cracks, and it looks pretty bright outside right now. So I feel like the sun's gonna set in like half an hour or so, maybe 45 minutes.
That's crazy. Okay.
Even then, just barely. Yeah, usually about 9 right now.
Okay. All right. That I forgot that. Yeah, you're a little bit, north, so things are going to be a little bit more extreme. Okay.
Yeah.
See, we're learning all sorts of things. People came here for The Boys Season 3 talk, and now we're talking about just like geography. Is that what this counts as?
Yeah. I was so bad at it in school, so it's nice for it to come full circle.
Yeah. Now you're the smart one, and I'm just like, oh, tell me more.
Take that, Mr. Wilcox. Give me that.
That just brings up a lot of questions, but I feel like it'll derail everything. I want to know all your teachers and whether they appreciate who you are now or not. No.
Who's to say?
We also have newcomer to the show, but awesome TikToker. We got Zara Zahava. Zara, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been kind of a lazy day, but that's always nice.
What's the weather out where you're at?
It's like 80, 85, so not bad. Where I am, we get very big extremes. Next week is going to be, I think, like 95 all week, so I'll enjoy the like 80, 85 while it's here.
Okay, that's fair. Does it get really hot during the summer? Is that how it works?
Yeah, it gets very hot and humid, and then freezing and feet of snow in the winter. We really get the worst of both worlds here.
That's on your state sign.
Yeah.
It's like now entering worst of both worlds. I'm glad to have both of you here to talk about The Boys Season 3. Right now, for anyone out there, it may be a little early at least in California where I'm at, for Californians to wake up and watch this at noon. But we are live streaming to volume.com, twitch.tv, and youtube.com. So any of those / The Keeg Show, and that's where we're at. But if you're listening to us, you're listening to our podcast, and that's wherever you get your podcasts from. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio. When did you guys start watching The Boys? Because this is Boys Season 3. And I don't know if anyone knew about The Boys comic before The Boys show came out, but I personally hate the comic, and I continue to hate the comic. And I keep trying. I've given up now, but there was a time where I kept trying to read the comic and get as far as I could before I had to stop. And then if I stopped, it'd be like a year later, I would start back at the beginning and try to read a little bit further and stop. And I think I've gotten about like 2/3 of the way, and I hate myself for it because not for not finishing it, but for even starting it in the first place because I hate the Boys comic. But how did you guys get into the Boys?
I can start.
Yeah.
I found it in potentially the more embarrassing way, which is that I unfortunately still actively care about the TV show Supernatural. And it's by Eric Kripke, who created Supernatural, also created this show.
Okay.
He was the showrunner for the first 5 seasons of Supernatural, and then he left and started doing this. And I started hearing right when the first couple episodes of season 2 dropped, I started hearing a lot of people online being like, wait, his new show is actually really good. It is like, and I kept hearing the recommendation, like, if you like Supernatural, you're going to love this. So I went in being like, you know what, I'll give it a try. Who knows? And then I absolutely fell in love with it. So I think that was around September 2020 was when season 2 came out. So I have not looked at the comics. It's something that I've always been like, I'll probably get around to that at some point, and I just haven't. But I went into it with like kind of middle expectations, being like, maybe it'll just be, maybe I'll like it, maybe it's something I'll only watch because it was created by the person who liked Supernatural. And I was like so pleasantly surprised at like just how quality it is. And honestly, like it's much better than Supernatural. I'm willing to admit it. And then they hired Jensen Ackles, who is from Supernatural, and that also I was very excited because I love him. But I also, anytime I say that, I feel like people are like, oh, so do you only like it because of Supernatural? And I always feel the need to be like, I promise you, it's an amazing show. I would like it even if they hadn't brought him on, and even if I had found it some other way.
I didn't realize that the showrunner on this was the showrunner from Supernatural. Yeah. Do the first, like, Jensen Ackles comes in season 3. Are there Supernatural stuff like related, like character or casting or whatever in season 1?
Not in season 1, but in season 3, there's also Robert Singer, like the guy running for president. He's also from Supernatural, and his character on that show is also called Robert Singer. Like the person who plays young Gunpowder was an actor on Supernatural. Like if you watch Supernatural, there's definitely some Supernatural Easter eggs throughout season 3.
Okay. All right. The weird Supernatural Boys pipeline. I would never have thought. But fair. Okay. T, how'd you get started?
Well, I'd like to say that I also really love Supernatural. I didn't know that it was Eric Kripke when I first went into the show.
Yeah.
Like when I first into I was very much, I think I just saw an ad online and people were talking about it, and I was like, oh, this show looks kind of good, I guess. It was right before, it came out in the era where I didn't have like what I call evil Superman fatigue.
Yeah.
Like Homeland, I think Homelander was like the last one. Everything that came afterwards, I was like, why is this another evil Superman thing? Like Omni-Man, all the rest of those guys kept on doing. So I was still very much like okay with the concept.
Yeah.
Right when it first came out. Learning that it was Eric Kripke did very much like help me continue it, because I'm also a big Supernatural fan. And I did stick it out also. All 15 years.
Did you really?
Yeah. My CW-isms like faded over time, but I say that the 3 CW shows I think I watched from beginning to end without fail because I was committed to them was Smallville, Arrow, and Supernatural. And a lot of those actors crossed over with each other. I think Jensen Ackles connects them all, actually, because he was in Smallville too.
At least there are 3 different universes. The Arrowverse reuses the same actors for multiple roles sometimes.
Yeah, when they run out of stuff, they just get
when there's no one else left in Vancouver, they're like, we gotta reuse all our Vancouver people again.
Yeah, Tom Cavanaugh, Grant Gustin, you know what to do. Yeah, get back in there.
Yeah. Supernatural also did that in the same show. It'd be like, this person was cast in season 2. No one will notice if they're also a different character in season 13. It's so funny.
But it's okay, they were a kid in season 2, and now they're a grown up in season 13, so no one cares. It's fine. Right. It's a different person.
People get on the MCU for like recast or like not recasting, but like double casting sometimes because it's very few and far between. Like it's like Star-Lord's mom was in Captain America. And whatnot, and people get on the MCU's case for that, and it's a couple of things. But then you look at the Arrowverse, or Zara's saying like in Supernatural, it just as one show. How does that happen? I don't even know.
I mean, the MCU, I like to justify Star-Lord's mom thing as that Steve is actually secretly Star-Lord's like great grandfather or something, and that was actually like his grandmother, and that's why she looked the same. Because like they have like a romantic glance. So in my head canon, Steve slept with her, and that's how the quills came to be.
Are you guys big into head canon? Or are you just like
no? But that's how I justify it without going insane.
Okay, at least in Spider-Man: Homecoming, they have the principal played by the same actor who's in the Howling Commandos and Captain America, but that's because he's the grandson or. I think grandson.
Yes, but they also have Mr. Harrington, who actually was an Incredible Hulk. And I don't think they were intended for him to be the same. It's the same actor. He's like the side character in Incredible Hulk.
What's his name? Martin Starr.
Martin Starr. Yeah, he was like it was before he kind of was big. He was like in the minor role in Incredible Hulk, and then like now he's Mr. Harrington. I think it was like after they were doing press for both, they were like, oh crap, we already used him. I think Kevin Feige was like, it's the same guy. We never named him in Hulk.
He was a lab assistant, and now he's teaching. That makes sense. Yeah. I have a buddy that lives up in Vancouver that's been 3 characters in the Arrowverse. One character was just this background security guard on Arrow, and then the second one was a bad guy hitman on Batwoman. And the third, he was in like 3 episodes of Superman and Lois running for mayor of Smallville. So I feel like it's increased over time, but to the point where like anyone watching, you don't even have to watch that first one, but Batwoman and Superman and Lois, you'd be like, that guy was the hitman. Like he was literally the Act 3 guy in an episode. So shout out to Nate. What was I saying? Where was my question going with this? How we got into it? Supernatural. I think I got into it because I knew that like Seth Rogen was involved, and like the boys had always been in talks to get developed because all these like random side comic that weren't DC and Marvel are always up for grabs, right? So it's like, okay, I think this Dynamite Comics was up for grabs, and so Seth Rogen was producing a lot of like random superhero related content like Green Hornet, however many years ago. And then this came around, and I think is he a producer on this? Yeah. And then he's a producer on Invincible as well, right?
Yeah.
So like he's just producing everything. And good for him. I have mad respect for Seth Rogen. But I said, I hated the comics. So when this show came out, I was not excited for it. And obviously the trailer, it didn't hide the fact that there was just going to be exploding bodies everywhere. Like the trailer was like, yeah, that's just what we're going to do. We're going to explode people. And I gave it a couple weeks before it came out. I'm like, I don't know whether I want to watch this because the comic is so bad. But then people said it was smart and like it was, irreverent. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll go into the first episode like this. I also get scared easily. That's also a thing of mine. So that doesn't help. But first season was good. And then I liked second season, especially the Stormfront stuff, because Aya Cash is great. And then we're at this season. Did you guys like first, second, or second season better? Not than third, but just to each other.
I think I preferred the first season to the second season, just marginally. I think because everything was, the novelty of it was all quite not, new-ish. Not to say that no one's done the whole evil Justice League plot before, but like to the degree that they went and how like grounded, I guess they took it. I thought it was all very fresh. And then by season 2, not say it felt, yeah, it kind of felt like, sometimes it felt like a bit of a rehash. They kind of just replaced Homelander's sort of role in the story with Stormfront and just kind of still did the same. Like it felt kind of the same, not in a bad way, but a lot of the tropes of the episodes were more or less the same. So I didn't really feel like I was watching a different story. There wasn't much that like developed beyond maybe, the Butcher, Becca part of the story. But outside of that, like, I'd say one. Just I think one. There was more surprises. One by two, I kind of knew what I was expecting. So I was like, she got burned up, I guess. And I'm used to it. One, someone gets like exploded from the arse. I'm like, whoa! Like I was, there was.
That's true. That did happen. Sometimes I forget about what happened in season 1.
I've been rewatching like the past week. I just started rewatching season 1 with my dad.
Yeah.
And I think it reminded me how much I liked it. I think that season 1 had a level of subtlety that the next 2 seasons don't. And I recognize sometimes you do need to be like very in your face, specifically with things like this, where it's like a political allegory that people are missing.
Yeah.
A lot of people did not understand the political allegory behind this until season 3. If you look through like the reviews on Amazon, season 1 and 2 were both like 5 stars all the way. And then season 3 has a lot of bad reviews from people who are like, oh my God, they suddenly got political. And it's like, so I recognize that the fact that to a certain extent they had to get even more in your face with the politics because people were missing it. But I do kind of miss the subtlety of season 1, where it was still very relevant and still like they weren't holding back, but they did so in a way that was like a little less preachy.
Yeah. I feel like this season 3 compared to season 1, where it was like, the heroes were kind of an allegory for celebrities, but then also for what was kind of like the government. Like there was different ways you can interpret it. Whereas season 3, it was like Homelander is Donald Trump, and we're not even beating around the bush at this time. He's just Trump.
I mean, it's interesting because like, season 1 did deal with like capitalism and like corporate stuff and whatnot, and then season 2 comes around and Stormfront pops up. And some people didn't know even the name of what the name of Stormfront is, but like I saw it coming from like the get-go, because there used to be a white supremacist website called Stormfront. And I remember that from when I was a kid, but when I was on the internet, I looked into that message board just to be like, how bad could these people be? They're very fucking bad. They are horrible, horrible goddamn people. And then I had a friend being like, why are you just going on that? I was like, I just want to, like, how do they think? It's really bad. My username for it was proud to be pale.
Oh no.
And I went on it because I was on a comic book website. I was on a comic book message board at the time, like a pretty big comic book message board. And everybody was like pretty cool there. And then they were like, oh yeah, there's this one like website out there that like they're hopping onto here and like starting shit. And I'm like, I wonder what, I don't know. It was fucking bonkers. Anyway, so I knew the name Stormfront. It was really bad. So I was like, okay, I see that twist coming. But I know there's a lot of people who watched it being like, oh, she seems cool. Oh, that came out of nowhere. And for me, I'm like, it didn't come out of nowhere. I literally saw that.
But I mean, like, her twist, I thought was like, I mean, you kind of could tell, all right, there's going to be an evil twist of her. She seems too good. Like, anyone on the 7 in general was always like, well, just wait for it to turn out to be evil. Like, that was kind of the running trend. So with her, it was like, I wonder how bad she can be. Like, I didn't know about the Stormfront thing. So her being like just full on racist, I didn't expect. But I think I like the way that they did it. I like how the boys do the whole let's release 2 or 3 episodes at once situation. Yeah. Because they saved the big reveal to like the end of episode 3. So you're watching, you're like, I know I don't like Stormfront. Like, she's cool, but I know that I'm probably not gonna like this character. And then I don't remember what racist remark she says to Kimiko and her brother. And you're just like, oh, okay, full on white supremacist. Got it. Yeah. Got it. I'm cool.
I was watching her with like a magnifying glass the whole time, trying to like find little things. I'm like, oh, I don't even need the magnifying glass anymore. Cool.
But it's interesting because people, but like even after that, they were like, I mean, she's kind of racist, but I wouldn't call her a Nazi. And then later on, you find out she was an actual Nazi. And you're like, I mean, at this point, how do you get surprised by that? Like, she wasn't after episode 3, those subtlety was out the window. Every like side glance she gave to like A-Train and Maeve and stuff like that, it was like, okay, she just hates everything.
Yeah. Zara, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, I was not super surprised by the Nazi thing, but also just in part because I will say comics, I mean, movies in general, honestly now, but comics love to be like, how do we make it clear this person's bad? We're going to make them a literal Nazi. You also see like Hydra is the same thing where like they're very, like they're not like, it's kind of an easy, it's an easy way for TV shows to be like, this person is irredeemable, is they're like, well, we can't figure out a better way, so let's just make them a literal Nazi. So I kind of saw it coming just in part because I've seen it so many other times where they're like, we need everyone on the same page. This person's bad. Might as well make them a Nazi. No one, she says it herself. She's like, people like what I have to say. They just hate the word Nazi. And it's like, then Homelander kind of goes on the whole 3rd season to kind of prove her point where he's also spewing some Nazi rhetoric and then getting away with it because he's not calling it him being a Nazi. He's calling it patriotism. Yeah. So I did see it coming just because people love to either, and even if they don't say the word Nazi, like so many other types of like shows and comics and movies will use like Nazi symbolism and imagery to be like, well, we're not going to call them a Nazi, but their uniforms look exactly like Nazis. So put 2 and 2 together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like Harry Potter is a big one, you know, that stands out to me.
Like Star Wars and the Empire, I feel.
Star Wars and the Empire.
Like on the nose.
Yeah. I feel like they half backed away from that recently.
In like the sequel trilogy, I think they kind of they pivoted a little bit, but like I think the original trilogy was fairly on the nose.
Yeah.
I think by like by Jedi, I think they kind of switched it to be like, oh no, well we're not trying to say that Vader is Hitler. They kind of backtracked right towards the end. They were like, no, that's more Palpatine. It's not Vader. We promise. Yeah. Because I guess they must have realized Vader was becoming cool. People were liking Vader, and they were like, oh, that's not what we wanted. So he's not the bad guy anymore. Don't worry.
It's interesting because we're all on TikTok. And by the way, I see Comic Hero North Coast out there in our chat on YouTube. Wanted to say what's up. But what was I saying? Oh, we're all on TikTok. Do we feel like a lot of people lack comprehension because it seems to blindside a lot of people, and then they deny, and then we have to be like, oh yeah, Falcon and Winter Soldier is about race, and they're like, no, and then it's like, yeah, and then the show actually has to like come out and say like, they're like spoon feed it, and then they're like, this is getting too preachy, and it's like, it wouldn't be too preachy if you understood it from the get-go. They wouldn't feel like they would have to spoon feed you.
I found that interesting because I was actually thinking about this today with Ms. Marvel, so I was like thinking of what I was going to say in like my review and stuff. And what I find interesting about Ms. Marvel in comparison to, say, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they both deal with, you know, not the clandestine, but more so like damage control. They deal with some sort of authority figure or like, you know, big group that seem like they're supposed to be the good guy, but actually have like a spearhead who is pretty much an allegory for racism. Yeah. Like, you know, Diva is very much like, we need to get them because they're, you know, they're in a mosque, so we have to attack the mosque and be disrespectful and all of that stuff. I remember what line she's in the finale, but it was something along the lines of like, this is what happens when the wrong people get powers. And then one guy next to her was like, what do you mean by wrong people? And she was like, teenagers. The teenagers is what I meant. Right. Yeah, definitely not minorities. But I think they made it more like subtle to a degree, like enough that you can read it and be like, oh, okay, she's racist and Cleary isn't racist. That was very like, that was an easy divide to make if you had the comprehension. But I'm surprised not a lot of people have like, I guess, talked about that online. I mean, I know I haven't even brought up the concept of racism in the show in any of my content yet, just because I've not really thought to go there. But I feel like if I did, there'd be a lot of like, oh, what are you talking about? She's just trying to clean up New Jersey. She's not racist. She's doing a job.
Right. The Stranger Things TikTok has that same thing where people will bring up a character as racist. They'll be like, no, Billy's not racist. And it's like, were we not watching the same show? And in a way, we're not, right?
No.
And I also think that, like, sometimes when this stuff comes up in something like Stranger Things, which is kind of more like PG-13, so they can't say things, in the same way that something like The Boys can be so like blatantly racist when they want to make it clear that a character is racist. Like, I think a lot of people are more willing to dismiss it because they can't say it outright. So they're doing their best to portray these characters as like racist in a way that won't get the show like rated R, like when you're working with those. And it's like, just because they can't be as blunt with it doesn't mean it's not there. It just means that you need to be more critical. And I don't know, I've always, when it comes to critical thinking, I feel like that meme where it's like, the curtains are blue, what the teacher thinks it means, like it means about sadness and depression, and it's like what the author meant, they're just blue. I feel like that meme that always circulates has done like irreparable damage to people's media literacy, because so many people are like, no, you are reading too much into it anytime you do like critical analysis, as if TV shows do not have hundreds of people working on the scripting and the lighting and the costuming and the props to portray a specific message that sometimes they can't just spoon feed to you.
Right. Like Stormfront's belt. It's like an iron eagle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's like, that's on purpose. It wasn't just, eagles are cool, dude. Like, let's put an eagle on her belt. I think it ties in with what kind of Zara was saying, where you have to like make people literal Nazis, or like a very, very like blatant allegory for Nazis. And I think it's the reason why it's like people are like, well, like I can't be racist because I'm not a Nazi. I can't be racist because that to me is like level 10 racist. And it's like, well, there's a whole spectrum of it. And a lot of these characters are. And what I think The Boys does in the comics, Garth Ennis does not treat anyone right, but like he is racist and misogynist as a writer, dare I say. Like, so you see it in the writing. In The Boys, I don't see it from the creators, and the creators making a blatant attempt to be like, the way they treat Mother's Milk or MM in the comics is bad, and just he's not a well-written character, and he's treated like shit. And so that's just an example. Or Annie in the comics.
Annie's the biggest culprit for me. Like the way compared to how she is in the comics, like to how she is in the show, it is the difference is ridiculous. I mean, like MM as well, just because like he actually has an arc in the show. From beginning to end, but Annie is just like, it's absurd the level of like it's almost like misogyny with like a curtain over it, because they're like, oh, Annie's the character that like things happen to her, and like, oh, like, you know, Annie fighting against this is why she's so cool and whatever. It's like, yeah, but you're drawing her in like the skimpiest bikini, and you're exploiting her for the sake of this message, whereas in the show things are happening, or things are trying to happen to her, I guess, but then her character is very actively stopping the things from happening. Like, you want her to wear this crappy costume, she's like, absolutely not, get out of my face. You want someone to abuse her, she's like, absolutely not. Whereas in the comics, these things just full on happen to her, and she's like, goes through emotional turmoil the entire time. It's like they're doing it to get shock value. But what I'm seeing when I'm reading it is like, so why are they drawing our main female protagonist naked so frequently? Like, it's really uncomfortable. And they design her body really like, in those same like hypersexualized proportions a lot of the times as well, compared to how they I don't remember the actor's name, compared to how they portray Annie in the show. She makes sure that she wears like mostly fully covered outfits. Anything that anything that's sexual that relates to her is usually handled in a tasteful way, like a sex scene with her and Huey. It's just a regular sex scene and not just hyper, like she's not like a porn star effectively, you know what I mean?
Right. The comics are shock value hidden under satire. It's not satirical because there's no point other than Garth Ennis hates superheroes and he thinks that power just corrupts everybody. So everybody just does whatever they want, and that's just the point of the comic. Versus the show where like there are good people on the show.
Yeah.
And Maeve so much better on the show than she is in the comics. Maeve is just like, in the comics, Maeve turns to Annie and goes, that happens. Whatever, that is what it is. Don't talk to me. And so I can't stress enough, don't read the comics. Real quick, as we talk about season 3, I want to know everybody's kind of like out of 10, what'd you think about season 3? And then, how it ranks. I want to know your season rankings, like 1, 2, and 3, and how that compares. Zara?
I think I would probably give it like a 7 out of 10. There were a lot of things that I really liked, but the big thing that holds me back is that there was a lot of things about the way they treated Black Noir that like really just like, I know we were talking about how like you don't feel there's much racism coming like from the writing room on the TV show, which did exist in the comics. I feel like potentially the treatment of Noir kind of unintentionally so, but I feel like they would not have treated like a white superhero that same way.
Yeah.
And I just the way they treated his entire plot line this season really bothered me, which is why I think that while I did really like the season overall, I think my ranking would just be season 1, then season 2, then season 3.
Oh. Is your enjoyment getting like, do you feel like you're gonna lose enjoyment in season 4, season 5? Like you just think it's kind of going down?
I don't think that it's actually going downhill like I just think it's hard because I do really enjoy all 3 seasons, but I just think that like if they had changed that one plot line, then I would have liked season 3 better than season 2. But I think that like the way they went about his whole storyline this season rubbed me the wrong way to the extent where like I can't in good conscience say that it is better than season 2 when it just left like such a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, that's fair. T?
So I also really was annoyed with Black Noir's treatment, and that pulls it away from me giving what I would have liked to have given the season a 10 out of 10. And the reason I really enjoyed this season in general, outside of Noir, is that it felt like it rather than just concentrating on Homelander as your main character, your main villain character, and Butcher as your main hero-ish character, they decided to put more focus on Annie, on Huey, on Kimiko, on Frenchie, on Emma. Like everyone felt like they had a sort of arc, except for Black Noir and arguably Maeve. Maeve somehow, for me, kind of felt like a bit of the damsel in distress, which was very strange. Like ever since last season, since they outed her as quote unquote lesbian, even though she's not, they've kind of just like thrown her as the like Homelander's punching bag. And they started out making it seem like, oh, Maeve's going to be like actively against Homelander. But they pretty much just like wrote her out of the show until the finale, which was a bit annoying for me. And then Noir, it gave him some sort of like, a narrative arc to be like, oh, he actually has history with Soldier Boy. Makes you think that, wow, this is going to be a really important part of the plot. And then he was just cannon fodder, really, by the end of it, that you're just supposed to feel bad at. And I think sometimes the show does have, like I said, some of the comic isms where they just favor shock value over actually putting care into characters. They just choose different characters. So they don't so much do it to like Annie. Because I think Annie's written very well across all 3 seasons. But in the comics, Annie's kind of the punching bag. But in the show, I think Black Noir and Maeve took the hits the most. But I'll give it its flowers because I really, really, really enjoyed Kimiko's story throughout the season. And I really enjoyed MM's story throughout the season. I think that, like, thankfully, like, the 2 characters that I've really liked since both of them were introduced. And thankfully, they're not just like, they're a part of the team. They're just going to be there for emotional support, especially MM, because MM very much, for me, he reminds me of the black best friend trope in a lot of these stories where it's like, I'm there's the main hero, I'm his best buddy that's also good with guns and sometimes can help fight, but really and truly, I'm just there for them to unload their emotions onto and give them sagely advice. Like that reminds me of like Diggle in Arrow. It reminds me of is it Pete in Smallville? Like it reminds me of like a lot of the same sort of like stereotypical characters. But MM, it felt like he had his own story. He went against the main sort of heroes and stuff because of his own moral judgment. I thought that was brilliant. And then Kimiko is a representation for me of like not going, basically going against what Garth Ennis's whole ideal was. All superheroes are bad. Her actively deciding that she's not a monster and having her own autonomy. Loved it. Brilliant. Great writing. So to answer the question, 8. I'll give the season in general an 8. And a ranking will be 1 through 2. As in highest to lowest. Okay.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. I really like this season because I feel like everybody had something to do for the most part. In fact, I think it might be at the expense of Butcher. Did they cut down because I feel like who had less part in this season than like in previous seasons? Maybe Butcher? Like they took away his screen time a little bit and gave it to other people.
I feel like they did that more so. I mean, I kind of, but I think they more so shared Butcher's story arc with Huey.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of what books, I think they were both supposed to represent the same sides, like the two sides of the same coin, except Huey went one way and Butcher went another way.
Yeah.
Then the whole, like, they both kind of went down the addiction storyline. They both went down the, I'm my brother's keeper sort of thing. And they both went down the I need power to defeat the enemy. Huey ultimately deciding that, actually, I don't need to use powers. I need to trust the people around me and trust my own abilities and stuff like that. So we trusted Starlight by the end. Butcher was like, yeah, no, I'm going to go all the way down the deep end. So I think Butcher had the right. I think he had the right amount of screen time and the right amount of narrative, just split evenly with Huey to show a nice comparison between with those two compared to Soldier Boy and Homelander, the other de facto father-son relationship in the show. I liked the parallel there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This season to me, I think I was like an 8 out of 10. I think so. I have yet to, maybe I would have to rewatch season 1, but season 1 was kind of I personally am not a huge fan of origin stories. So I feel like season 1 is really just building up to what happens in season 2 and season 3.
Mm-hmm.
I did like season 2 a lot. So I think it might be 2, 3, 1 for me. And that's just my personal preference of origin stories. It's okay. Great setup. Let's move on and kind of whatever. And Stormfront was a great villain. But this one, I feel like everybody got a chance to shine with everything. Even everybody had at least, a couple major scenes where they could act. Victoria Newman even. Wait, Newman. Yeah, Victoria Newman. Even had a couple scenes, right? And Giancarlo Esposito, with his he didn't have that much time, but great, he was there for a little bit, too. But yeah, I'd say 8 out of 10. Zara, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I was agreeing. I think that I really I wanted to be clear, I really did enjoy this season. Yeah. I also just have a couple qualms.
Yeah. What were your other qualms? We can dig into it.
Yeah. Another thing that I feel like there was a lot of people who were just kind of killed for no reason. I feel like the way they did Stormfront's death, off screen, just randomly, it barely, it felt unnecessary when they could have either just left her dead from season 2 or it felt very random and out of place. I also think that another qualm I had was that this season was the season I liked the dynamic between Huey and Starlight the least, which I think is definitely partially intentional. You're supposed to see that their relationship is kind of faltering, but I feel like this is a problem that also Eric Kripke had when he worked on Supernatural, where he gets so close to making a salient point and then just misses the mark, because he did this thing with the two of them where Huey would do something that was very clearly supposed to be an indication of toxic masculinity, his whole thing about desperately being I want to save her for once. You were supposed to watch that and be he is being toxic for doing that. And then Starlight would turn around and do the exact same thing back to him. And you were supposed to watch and be oh, girl boss, I love her. She's and I think that toxic behavior, yes, when he was doing it, it was kind of toxic masculinity, but it was still kind of toxic the way that she was doing it back to him, because she was also kind of taking away his autonomy. And we're talking about a society in which different power dynamics exist because there are people with superpowers and people without superpowers. So when you want, I think that within a society like that, you would also have to talk about things kind of what privilege comes with being a superhero, and the way she treated, and the way she is treating him would probably fall into that same, I don't know, superhero toxicity. She is also taking away his autonomy, and it is not condemned when she does it. And I think that just the way they could have done this exact same dynamic and framed it in a way where her doing that was a negative thing, and then they could have made that really salient point, and instead I feel he just kind of missed the mark.
That's fair. This is why I have you both on here, giving me things to think about. I'll end up finishing off this episode and be I should do another episode to go over what I just learned. We can do an after show for this podcast episode. Yeah, I didn't think about it that way. This is definitely like they're throwing Annie and Huey through the ringer in this season. I didn't like Huey in this season. I think it's a classic example of like the powers corrupting. And although I expect it from Butcher, I thought Huey would be a little bit different, but he's not. T, were you gonna say something?
I mean, I agree, like that. You know, whilst watching it, I really wasn't enjoying Huey for basically both of the reasons you were saying. Like the toxic masculinity stuff was tiresome, but also felt quite on the nose as well. It was like, okay, this was sort of bound to happen eventually, especially once they introduced the idea of, oh, maybe we can get powers. I don't know if I liked the idea of like Huey, as soon as he realized that he could give himself powers, he just jumped at it, considering how much of an anti-powers guy he was after A-Train, after Robin and stuff like that. I thought that was very much just like, okay, they needed a reason for him to be in danger, so they just threw him into this mix, whereas like, you know, the rest of the boys have very clear reasonings and strong moral reasonings as to not doing it. I don't know. It felt like something more, I guess, I would have seen Frenchie doing more so than Huey. But yeah. But what I would say I liked about Huey in general was that by the end, his decision makings by the finale felt like whatever arc they were putting him on felt relatively full circle. His stuff with Starlight, you know, less so I need to stop being a toxic boyfriend, but more so I liked the idea that, you know, instead of him, you know, taking the 10th V and jumping in to save the day, he said, oh, I'm not even going to just leave her there. I'm going to support her and be like, oh, actually, this is a good way to not just leave her by herself, but help her in a way that's less, you know, ridiculous, less stupid. I'm not going to kill myself to help her, but I'm also going to trust that she has the power to do what she needs to do. I liked that side of it. And I also liked the idea that while he said no to it, Butcher said yes to it. I liked just that parallel between them. So I feel like even though Huey was written in an annoying way, I think it's because he was adopting so much from Butcher. He was learning so much from Butcher that he was going down the dark path, but they made the split where Butcher went too far and he managed to pull away. I liked that change. And again, by comparison to the father-son dynamic of Homelander and Soldier Boy, Homelander pretty much was the perfect copy of Soldier Boy in every single way, to a point where even Soldier Boy was like, yeah, you suck. Like, you're the worst. Yeah. So that almost is an example of like, if Huey went down the same path as Butcher did, Butcher probably look at Huey and be like, you're an idiot. You're a disappointment and stuff like that. But I think Butcher he probably even has a level of respect for Huey for not going down the same path as him.
Mm-hmm. I want to bring this up because I don't want it to slip through my brain. Do we feel like Stormfront is dead? Because I don't feel like she's dead.
I feel like if she's not dead, the big reveal is going to be that next season. This is not my original idea. One of my friends texted it to me, and then I saw it all over the internet. I feel like if they bring her back, it will be that she is Homelander's mother, which would be a really messed up plot, but also kind of makes sense. Mm-hmm. Because as soon as the reveal happened that like Soldier Boy's his father, people were like, who else was around that time? She's naturally blonde. And if you mix their two powers, the powers kind of go together to make Homelander. And we know he has mommy issues. So it would be kind of go along with the way they do things where it's like she's his literal mommy and they just don't know. But I feel like that is the only capacity in which I could see them bringing her back. Otherwise, she like if that is not the plot they're going with, I feel like she is really just dead. I know it's gross, but I saw that like people were talking about it online, and like there's a lot of things that would kind of make it make sense.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past the boys. Like the boys would definitely do something like that.
My only. Like, so I think she's just dead. And my only, I saw that theory kind of going around online too. And my only sort of issue with it is that it would feel like they were kind of doing the same, you know, parent reveal that they've just done. They're like, haha, I'm your father, I'm your mother. It would just kind of feel like they're just doubling down again. And B, I feel like Oedipus complex, like with his mommy issues, feels very much more of a more metaphorical thing that he's going through. To make it him literally having like the exact, sexual attraction to his mother, and that I think that would be a little too on the nose for the metaphor of his problem. I think it works better as he has an issue with maternal figures, and he has an issue with like domineering female characters and stuff like that. That's why he's not really gelled well with Maeve and with Starlight, because they are domineering and they don't give him the love and support that he craves from women. I feel like that it works better as, I think, as more of a subtlety. As we said at the start, like the subtlety of season 1, like even though I forgot that woman's name, the old VP of war, Stillwell. She wasn't his literal mom, but his Oedipus complex was very much transferred onto her. And I think that was more subtle, like, okay, yeah, he sees her as a mother figure, he has mommy issues. If Stormfront comes in and is like, I'm actually your mom, it would be like, in case you missed it in the first season, he has mommy issues.
Yeah.
But they'd be shoving it down my throat a little too much.
Yeah, I don't particularly want it to happen, because I agree it would be too on the nose. But also with season 3, there was a bunch of times where I was like, that was a little too on the nose. To the point where I'm like, I don't want it to happen. Like, honestly, I'd prefer she just stay dead at this point. Yeah. But that is the only path forward I could see them bringing her back without it feeling like they're like shoehorning her in. Specifically because if they bring her back, they're starting this pattern where it's like, okay, every season they beat the big bad, but they're not really gone, because like we also have Soldier Boy, who we know is not dead. So I feel like if they bring her back, then it's just kind of a point where everyone watching will be like, okay, so can anyone stay dead on this show? What's going on?
Robin.
It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. She'll be back.
Yeah.
There'll be a soup, and there'll inevitably be a soup with the power to bring someone back to life, and then we'll just be down the rabbit hole again.
That would be. I mean, where can we go from here? I mean, I think that's somebody who could bring someone back from life, like back to life. That'd be crazy. I only think that Stormfront's not dead because it's just weird that like she had one scene and that was literally giving a hand job to Homelander, and then she's killed off screen, and it was like that was it. What was the point? I don't know. It just seems like she's gonna come back. Also, people brought up, and this is not something that I remembered, but somebody brought it up online. Soldier Boy and Liberty started Herogasm back decades ago. Liberty is Stormfront.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's weird, but okay. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I agree that it was very weird to have her in one scene, but it's also possible that like they could just be doing the whole fridging thing where it's like they gotta kill her to like, it's so common, such a common trope to just kill off a woman for the sake of angst and character development for a man.
Yeah.
That it's not too out of the realm of possibility to believe that they did really kill her off like that, just to give him more angst and to push him further.
Yeah.
It's definitely like I could see a world in which they bring her back, but I feel like if they do, it won't necessarily be for the better. I don't think that it will enrich the show if they do.
Right.
I also think like with like on that note of the whole like kill off the female character to further the male character, I also think they had that in mind, but I also think at the end of last season they probably weren't sure if they wanted to do that yet. So they were like, we'll kind of kill her, but let's make her murmur some shit just in case we decide. Like, I think at that point they didn't know what they wanted to do with Stormfront post her incineration. So they were like, let's leave the window open just a crack. If we decide you want her back and have a full arc next season, we'll do that. And then they got to like season 3 and they were like, nah, let's kill her. We don't need her. We've got other stuff going on. We've got a dad character now. We don't need a mother character and a dad character. It's too much. Get her out of here.
Yeah.
It also could have been a more simple point of like maybe the actor just wasn't available for a full season, so they were like, oh well, she needs to go. Get this character out of here.
Now I have to look up what Aya Cash is up to right now. Let's talk about Homelander. In this season, where they're talking about like his points being low, him being linked to Starlight keeps his points higher, and then realizing that like, oh, people quote unquote like him for who he is, which is such like it seems nice if it wasn't for Homelander. Like the lesson of like, people like you the way you are. Why don't you just be yourself? But I don't want Homelander to be himself because he's a piece of shit. And like, he realizes his points are going up within this very vocal base. And we know who it is. Like, I get it. But how do we feel about this whole... Oh, and Homelander and Ryan. There's a lot that happened with Homelander this season. Zara's nodding. You got big points to make?
I know one thing that I thought was just super interesting. Again, I've been watching season 1 again, so it was like fresh in my brain. Is that in the second episode of season 1, Stillwell is having a conversation with him, and she says like, gods are pure and perfect and above it all, and they have to stay that way. And I think that it's like really interesting character progression to show how this season he's gotten so away from that. Because like in season 1, the ethos was like, yes, he has to be perfect because people will like, you're not a god, like you'll lose your god status. And then this whole season was him going, no, I won't. Like, I'm a god, whether people like me or fear me. And then he also gives that whole spiel to Ryan, saying essentially like, accidents happen. Gods aren't perfect. We make mistakes, but it doesn't matter if we make mistakes because like, who's going to call us on it? Is like a very interesting character progression. And I also thought that like his whole speech with Ryan was such like an interesting parallel to the scene where MM is talking to his daughter and giving the exact opposite message of like, no one is infallible. We need to hold people accountable. Everyone makes mistakes. That sort of thing. I think it was like so well done looking at those speeches like side by side.
What's the guy who's married to MM's
Todd.
I fucking hate Todd.
Todd.
Everybody hates Todd. Todd is the worst.
Him getting punched is definitely one of the top moments of the season.
Oh yeah.
That was satisfying. But then him still like, and ending the season with him just like seeing someone get incinerated and him just being like, woo! Like,
it's weird because I feel like in that final scene with Todd, we don't need to spend too much time talking about Todd. Todd could be 2 hours. We could talk about people that we know like Todd, like whatever. But Todd, when he saw the guy's head blown up in half, right? Just like whatever, there was a fear. Like I saw fear in his eye. I'm good on the actor, by the way. No hate to the actor. Much love to the actor. The character sucks. The actor did a great job making us hate the character. But like you can see the fear in his eyes, looking at him, and then almost like, I don't know, climaxing from a power fantasy. Is that, dare I say? Like
you know you're saying about the actor. It's a thought I've had in my mind for a while. It's starting to annoy me because it's impressive. Don't you just find the actors that play like racists that aren't trying to be racist are just really good? Like I can't. It's hard to like for me. You know, sometimes you're like, oh, you get a separate character from the actor. I'm like, yeah, I always do. But sometimes it's like I'll see like Wyatt Russell playing like John Walker in Falcon and the Soldier. But apparently it was like, yeah, he's getting abused online because of his character. Da, 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 da. I'm like, really? I thought he was fucking fantastic. I hated if you're an actor that can make me hate you that much to a degree. Like I'm like looking at your every facial expression, like shit, this guy's very accurately playing this character. I'm like, should I like him, or is he just that familiar with this type of person that he's not even acting anymore? Sorry, that's just a random thought I had. Actors that play racist characters are just really, really good. It's hard to shake it.
Is that similar to when you say something like, dare I say, like a not a gay joke, but a joke in which you're like being gay, and then people are like, you do that too well.
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
Yeah. No, those types of people I always catch in like, it's like the slavery movies and stuff where they just get hard R-ing, and the way that they use the whip is just a little bit too, like, you enjoyed that too much. The director just said, like, gently swing your arm down, and you were like, nah! Like, those guys, I'm like, all right, you're having a little too much fun in this environment, and you need to reel it back. But guys like Todd and like John Walker and even Homelander, the way they play their, racism, their homophobia, their misogyny, like all of their like negative tropes is done so well because the actors make the characters seem like you can understand why a certain type of person would like this person. Like they're not an unlikable fundamental person.
Yeah.
But you know, they just they have all of the nooks and crannies of your everyday racist.
It reminds me of those TikTok videos where they'll show a scene from a movie and then it'll cut to the director being like, your line was like, hey, how's it going? Like,
yeah. It's like, you yellow belly. Yeah. Okay, right. Oh, Jesus.
Or the scene from Black Klansman where Adam Driver's chasing after the car, like the car, but he's undercover.
And he runs out. Yeah.
And it's like, your line was, get out of here, dude.
Yeah. Also, the people he was shouting at could not hear him as well. So he's like, I'm sure that was written in the script, sir.
I think it was anyway, that's we'll save that for the Black Klansman episode. By the way, not a great first date movie. Great movie. Not a great first date movie.
No issue.
Anyway, what was I saying?
Yeah, Todd. No, yeah, sorry, I completely derailed.
Todd. Nobody likes Todd.
But yeah, no, I agree. There was he definitely enjoyed it a little too much.
Yeah.
But I think there was a balance of like fear, but also like, what if that was me? Like he's just like me. If I had that power, I'd do the same thing.
Living vicariously through these people, right?
Yeah. Or you could probably interpret it as like him doubling down. I feel like he saw it and he was like, well, I'm in the deep end now. If I run and scream, I lose. Like I have to admit that I was wrong. So I'm gonna have to double down and be like, well, yeah, I mean, if I say no now, he might kill me. So he kind of just applauds anyway. Just as like he's made his bed and now he's sleeping in it.
Yeah, being on Homelander's side.
I also feel like, I mean, like that last scene was very much kind of, as we've talked about, he's clearly Trump. There was that whole Trump quote where it's like, I could shoot someone in broad daylight on Fifth Ave and not lose a single voter. And this show is saying, yeah, Homelander's the same way, and he's actually going to follow through on that. How much scarier is it when this person is not just all talk?
Yeah.
Not that, like, and I think that, like, I mean, I know people in my life who absolutely, like, Trump could have shot someone and they'd be like, yeah, but it's fine. So it's like I don't think that it's that wild to say, like, Todd really sees that and is like, finally some action. I'm so happy to be a part of this movement, as opposed to being like, I'm scared, therefore I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Homelander tells Annie, no, is it Maeve or Annie? Basically, that the blackmail material won't work because, sure, he wants people to like him, but if you do that, then that's it. I'll just blow up a city or
Annie.
Whatever. That's Annie?
Yeah, it's Annie. Yeah, I love that scene.
Yeah.
That was terrifying. Terrifying.
Great scene. Great acting. And it's like, oh, that is in his head. He's like, if I have nothing, you don't want to see me when I have nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take away everything from me, then great. We'll see how that goes. Oof.
Yeah, because it comes to the question of like, it's that whole like, was the Watchmen? Who watches the Watchmen? Like, where you have like people that have ultimate power, like who can check them, especially in this storyline where they're basically like they managed to shout out like Stan Edgar, who was kind of the person that kept the gods in check. With him sort of out of the picture, like the boys team kind of losing their sort of grip on it. They've lost their sort of trump card, which was the plane footage and stuff like that. Outside of that, it's like once you give this guy once he has nothing to lose, that's it. Like unless you can find a bigger gun, like I guess Soldier Boy was intended to be, there's no stopping him. Like that's it.
Yeah, I mean that's what this season was, right? It's like power vacuums.
Yeah.
It's Victoria Newman versus like trying to figure out like what's she gonna do, how's she gonna keep power. Then they take down Stan Edgar. Stan Edgar? Is that what his name is? Okay. And then Homelander fills that role. Does he need Annie? Does he not need Annie? Turns out when he's true to himself, he doesn't need Annie. A lot of different power moves. Maeve gets taken off the table. And that sort of thing. And then they have to bring in Soldier Boy to kind of even the playing field. Let's talk Soldier Boy. Because people have mixed feelings about Soldier Boy. And I feel like he's pretty easily a specific type of character.
I can see the joy in Zara's eyes to talk about Jensen Ackles. So I'm gonna
I feel like I have seen so many Soldier Boy apologists online being like, well, he's less bad than Homelander. And I'm like, you are falling for it. Like, this man, at least in my opinion, he is worse than Homelander. Homelander's done some bad stuff, but like, it's the throwaway lines about Soldier Boy that show just how evil he is. Like, there's just like a throwaway line where they're like, yeah, well, he did target practice at Kent State and he held fire hoses at Birmingham. Like, you're supposed to, like, Jensen Ackles does an incredible job at when he's in those scenes where he's like, but I'm really not a bad guy. Like, you want to believe him. Whereas I feel like whenever Homelander has had those scenes where it's like, but I'm not a bad guy, like, he plays it in a way where it's like, you as the audience are clearly not supposed to even consider it for a moment. Yeah. Whereas the way Jensen Ackles played it was, I think, very brilliant, where he was like so convincing to the point where it's clear that like Soldier Boy doesn't think he's a bad person. Soldier Boy thinks that, I mean, and that comes back to the fact that he is obviously like wildly racist among many other character flaws. Like, he doesn't think that it was a bad thing that he did those terrible things because he thinks that those are good. So he doesn't for a second, like, he genuinely believes that he is a good guy and that everything he has done has been justified, including his like revenge mission. But I think that, again, it gets back to the media literacy problem where it's like, just because he is doing a fantastic job at convincing you that like deep in his heart, he's a good guy, does not mean you should be believing him.
Yeah.
It's they make it so clear time and time again that like maybe the reason it was like an enemy of my enemy is my friend situation, but the problem is, what do you do when this new enemy is even worse than the original?
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to be something they're going to have to grapple with down the line, because we know Soldier Boy's coming back, because otherwise they would have just killed him off.
Can they kill Soldier Boy? I can't tell how strong he is. I know that, like, sure, his explosions won't blow him up, but, like, a bullet to the head doesn't kill him? Would it just bounce off of his head?
The way they define, like, both he and Homelander's, like, scale of power is a little confusing, because sometimes I'm like, nothing can pierce Homelander, even if he's super strong. But if you get a sharp object in the ear, that'll do it. That'll do something. You know what I mean? And the same with, like, Soldier Boy, I thought was like, I don't know. It's hard, especially when you're comparing it to the character that they're supposed to be parodying. Like, in my mind, Soldier Boy was supposed to be a parody of Captain America, but clearly he's got like Superman level strength because he's going like, you know, blow for blow with like Butcher and Homelander. Yeah. So it's hard to tell where they're like, do they have the iron skin that Superman has? Do they have a healing factor like Wolverine? Like, it's hard to kind of gauge, I guess, how strong each person is. But I feel like I don't think Bullets is going to do too much to
Soldier Boy?
Soldier Boy at all. Nah. Yeah. Just because I feel like if that were the case, then I think MM probably would have just taken his shot. But he had to actively go out of his way to like get the gas and stuff like that. Because he watched the footage, didn't he, of like all the things that people tried to do to him. Yeah. And it was like the only thing that stopped him was the gas. So I think the implication is that he's pretty much bulletproof.
Yeah. What Zara was saying, like, I definitely agree. And I think that there's a point of bringing, like, if Soldier Boy was less attractive than Jensen Ackles, we wouldn't be buying it. And that like is also shame on us, because that's the way we're wired. But also,
but then I think Zara hit the nail on the head. Like, it's the media literacy side of it. Like, we can watch it and we're like, okay, like, I'm watching it very much aware that Jensen Ackles is doing an incredible performance. I'm not blindsided by that. For one thing that, like, after 15 seasons of Supernatural, like, I've been racking my head against the wall being like, why doesn't everyone know that he's like a phenomenal actor? Like, I've known Jensen's been incredible since Smallville, let alone Supernatural. Like, none of that surprised me in the slightest. But beyond his performance, like, I can tell, like, you catch all the little lines that he says and the little lines other people say about him, where you're like, he's a terrible person. For as much as they sort of sideline Black Noir's flashback of what happened or what Soldier Boy did to him, like, being that abusive because he went for an audition for Beverly Hills Cop, was like, you could tell how bad of a person he is. And especially when the confrontation between him and Homelander comes up, where it's like, yeah, I'm you, but you're pathetic. He just pretty much disowned his own son and was ready to kill his grandson. Like, he's very clearly the worst version of Homelander. He's like the Homelander extreme. Just that he does believe that everything he's doing is justified and is right. But Jensen Ackles is really convincing that it is. You're like, oh, actually, maybe the way this guy's performing it, maybe he's right. Especially when they do things like, I wanted to have a kid, I wanted to have a family, that sort of stuff to try and butter you up. When in actual fact, if you know how to read these kind of shows, I think it's very apparent. It does make me worried that season 4 now is going to be like, I guess it's going to have to be even more obvious, and we're going to turn Vought into the Nazis, something like that. I don't know.
Right. Because I feel like, again, with the media literacy thing, like, people say, like, sometimes people, will say about these sort of things, like, they're being too preachy. Like, I like things when they're subtle, but then people don't pick up on things when they're subtle. And it's like, then that's the problem here, is that, like, you're not literate enough to be reading between the lines. And then when they come out and say it, you're like, why did they come out and say it? They should have like, I don't think Homelander and Soldier Boy are on, like, they're both evil in different ways. And I don't think, like, one is more evil than the other. It's just how they are operating in society, right? They fill roles. I think it also ties in with how, if we, like, the idea that, like, Nazis are the absolute evil and anything better than the Nazis is passable. At least this person didn't do this. If you like the way Jensen Ackles looks, that makes things easier. Then you're like, yeah, but, like, he killed them because, like, it had to be justified, right? Like Payback betrayed him. And that's how I was in the beginning. When I saw Crimson Countess, when I saw her, like, tied to the chair and, like, she's going to get executed, I'm like, well, we don't, because we didn't know the full story back then. I was like, okay, like, she betrayed him. He kills her when he comes back. Understandable. But then you get these flashbacks where, like, he's just abusing his team. But then you think, at least he didn't, like, sexually assault someone like Homelander does or did or whatever. But, like, they're both fucking horrible things. These are all horrible things. And, of course, his team wants to, like get him out of the picture. It's all grays and horrible fucking things.
Yeah, I mean, once the reveals happen, then you can very much clearly tell. But, like, I keep going back to him and Black Noir, but, like, that was very much a I'm white, you're black kind of a situation. There wasn't any other way to kind of interpret that scene in my mind. It was like, okay, you're very much just like,
know your place, right?
Yeah. And Black Noir's, like, interpretation of which animals they were, he literally made himself the black sheep character. Like, that scene felt very on the nose kind of thing. It's like, hey, you're here. He's Black Noir was the A train of the team. Like, you're here to fill that quota. You're here for my points or whatever it was. That's it. Like, that, nothing more, nothing less.
Well, he was forced to wear the mask, right? Didn't they say you have to wear the mask?
Yeah. That's even worse. It's just like you're there as the miscellaneous character. The minute you reveal, especially in the sense that, like, he wanted to go for the actual Foley role, right? Like, he wanted to be the new Eddie Murphy or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, no, you aren't doing that. You can't do that. Sorry, because that would mean that you'd be a celebrity and your blackface would be shown to everyone, stuff like that.
Yeah,
him being a terrible person in flashbacks and that contextualize a lot of why the team betrayed him and stuff like that. Outside of the whole, they wanted to replace him with a Homelander clone or whatever. But I don't know. I think for me, everything about him was on the surface. I think it was very easy to read.
Yeah. Again, media literacy. Right?
Yeah. What's that line he said about Bill? He was like, Bill Cosby, that guy knew how to party. He's like, red flags all the way. Like,
Paul Reiser. Is this the first time we're seeing Paul Reiser's character? The one he's the one who's just like, oh, I had a threesome with blah blah blah. Look her up. Like, you know what I'm talking about? What's his name? The guy that Homeland or Soldier Boy goes to see.
Oh, the Stan Lee guy.
Is he a Stan Lee guy?
What's the character's name? Is it The Legends?
Yes.
Yeah, so in the comics, his character is basically like a Stan Lee. He's a comic book owner, like comic shop owner.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
the person that like kind of came up with the idea of war, like way back when and stuff like that. Like he was supposed to be like if these guys are all the Marvel heroes, he's the Stan Lee that kind of like has all the control and stuff like that.
Yeah, and set up.
They even gave him
stuff.
Yeah, and they gave him like the Stan Lee glasses and the Stan Lee stash and stuff like that.
Well, he didn't have a stash.
No, in the show, and I think in the comics he got the Stan Lee stash, didn't he?
Oh yeah, I'm seeing it. Yeah. Ugh. Also, the art in the comics, I hate the art.
I didn't like the art either.
Yeah. Yeah, that character. Did you guys have a favorite character this season? Did we talk about this?
For me, it's MM. No, okay, wait, hold on. I liked a lot of characters this season, actually. I was gonna say, wait, no, Annie. Wait, no, Kimiko. I liked all three of those characters because all three of their arcs are really good. Yeah. I'm not gonna say Annie because I think I've liked Annie from beginning to end. So I feel like Annie, in my mind, is like not the perfect character because I like that she kind of represents the whole like even absolute power doesn't have to corrupt absolutely. I like that she's the anti-Homelander. So I've always had a soft spot. But Kimiko's arc this season of being like, I'm a monster, like this is what they made me to be, so I don't want to be it anymore. She loses it, discovers that, oh, actually, it's choices, it's human choices. I don't have to do what Butcher says. I can have my own autonomy. I can have powers and still be a good person and use my abilities the way that they should be used. I don't have to run away from these things. Like I liked her gaining her own autonomy back, considering how much how she was treated the previous season.
Yeah.
And then MM just being very much like he maintained his morals from beginning to end, despite like everything that's happening with his family, the Todd of it all, like everything happening in front of his daughter and stuff like that. Like, I liked that he stayed true to his character. Like those two. Maybe I'm just a sucker. I like the good guys. I like all the good guys.
I also, Kimiko is definitely my favorite of this season. I think it's so challenging to take a character who doesn't talk and make them so dynamic, so likable, so real. And it's something they failed to do that with Noir. Like they have two silent characters, one, and that's something that also just made me so mad about how they dealt with Noir, because this whole time, all 3 seasons, I was sitting there like, they have taken one silent character and made her into a real person. When are they going to use those skills they clearly have and use them to make this second silent character a person? And then they just kind of never did. Like they never put in the effort to do that. I think that like it's incredibly challenging to do what they did with her character within the parameters of the fact that she never talks. And I truly I'm also a sucker for the good guys. Like I truly, I loved seeing her progress throughout all 3 seasons of like, she had no autonomy in her younger life. And then finally getting to the end of this season and hitting the peak of this arc where she's like, for the first time in my life, it is my choice what I am doing. And I am choosing to take on this power and this responsibility because I want to use it for good and because I want to protect those I love. And like, just getting to see the empowerment that came with that. Like I love her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting nuance that some people might not understand is like, well, what's the point? Like, what's the point if you get your powers taken? You don't want your powers get taken away, blah, blah, blah. And then having it back, people will see it as she just changed her mind. But they pretty clearly state, like, it's about your choice and choosing to have that, you know?
Yeah, because the fact that she was, I don't remember what that sort of group that she was called, but she was the monster for them. And then when she joined the boys, Butcher only saw her as a tool as well. So she was kind of their monster throughout season 2. And then throughout the season 3, she was kind of questioning like, I don't want to be like the loaded gun of the team, like the only with powers on the team and stuff like that. And obviously it helped a lot that, everyone on the team was kind of seeing Butcher was not the perfect guy. And his decisions were actually flawed. So her kind of going through that, like, the idea of like, I want my powers gone, and then realizing that, oh no, wait, now I got my powers. Like Frenchie nearly died. Like a lot of trouble happened because I couldn't protect everybody. And she what she did in that warehouse with I forget the woman's name. I can't remember the lady's name. But when they were kidnapped, that whole like scene where she kind of just goes crazy. She realizes that, oh, actually, I might be a monster one way or the other. The difference is, I have a choice now. Like when I don't have a choice, I do bad things, but I have a choice to get my powers back. I know what I want to do. I love that. She gained self-control.
Yeah.
I I also think it's interesting to see she's one of the only characters left who's like hurt every time she kills someone, like who like takes a moment to pause. Because like I remember season 1, there's that conversation that Huey has with, I believe, Frenchie about like how you never forget your first kill. And then it kind of seems like he forgot Translucent and like moved on and is almost like they've all gotten so comfortable with killing, which is like this whole show is about moral gray areas and when it is and is not okay to be a murderer and like that sort of thing. And I think that she, of all of the boys, she seems to be the only one who is still conflicted about the idea of killing people and like seems actively like really upset every time that she does it or every time like she makes someone's life worse. Like she feels so bad when like killing someone in front of those 2 kids at the in front of the roller coaster, and like feels bad in the scene where like all of the like prostitutes or whatever they were like are all so scared of her. Like I think that she moving forward might be like a huge moral compass for the team as the only person who seems to like even pause before killing people. And it's like it is so easy once you get to the point of like your butcher where it's like I will kill anyone I need to get to where I need to be. It is so easy for all of them to follow suit and then become fully the bad guys themselves. So I think that like it is refreshing to have her there being like, hey, we need to make sure we're not the monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot about that scene. That's the scene where Crimson Countess blows up the mascot, right?
Yeah. Gross.
Yeah.
That was gross.
There are some gross moments in this show. Comic Hero North Coast brought up, I think they did the Ant-Man and Thanos meme. In the first episode, it was so gross. With Termite. Zara, I find it funny. You watch it with your dad?
Yeah, I originally didn't, but my aunt, his sister, is obsessed with it, and me and my aunt keep talking about it in front of him, and he was like, I think that I should watch it too. I think I'll really like, and he loves it so far. But I was like, there's some scenes I think I don't want to be around you while you watch them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That one in particular, I think I'll make him watch that episode on his own.
Oh, he hasn't watched it?
I was about to say.
No, so with my dad, we're still on season 1.
Oh, okay.
Right. Okay.
It ramps up, right? 6, so yeah, I guess. Like it just always like one-ups itself, season after season.
I was conflicted about watching it with him, but I was like, I know he's gonna watch it eventually.
Yeah.
My days were numbered before I had to eventually watch it with him.
Yeah, it's cool that your dad likes it though. Like, you know, I really want. So, like, just a side note. Like, I watched Birds of Prey with my mom. Like, I've watched it a couple of times. I watched it 2 times in theaters because I really like it. And then I saw, and then it was during pandemic where I was like, it's on HBO Max. I'm gonna watch it with my mom because I think my mom would like it, and my mom did like it. And then now I'm like, well, I want her to watch The Suicide Squad, but then I had to ask her. I was like, "Are you okay with like violence?" And she's like, "A little bit." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, never mind. I can't watch The Suicide Squad with her."
That's exactly why I can't watch most like things like The Boys and stuff like that. Like my mom does watch like sort of quote unquote mature shows and stuff, but like she's also quite squeamish when it comes to that like gore and violence and stuff like that. Like she'll watch a horror movie, but the minute the gore happens, like her head's just turned away. Yeah. She'll just like change the channel or whatever it was. So I feel like The Boys would be like, let's do too much of that. Like we wouldn't get through an episode like covering her eyes the entire time.
My family's big on horror movies.
Oh, really?
My family's big on horror movies. It's like 98% of what we watch in this household. So he loves the gore. We always laugh at it. It's like the moments where you're supposed to scream or like cover your eyes in horror movies, we're always cackling. So yeah. The gore isn't the problem.
My mom loves the horror movies for the like she likes to be scared. Like my family we watch horror movies together and stuff. Like if I go to like visit them, we'd all watch it together. But at the same time, we'd like if we know a movie, like before we go into it, we kind of like look to see how like grotesque and violent it is. And me and my siblings we're fine with it or whatever. But if it's my mom, she'd be like let me know when the gross stuff happens so I can turn away. But I still want to watch it. So tell me what happened. Like describe it to me.
My mom will do a thing where like we'll watch something and I'm like, oh, I think they're gonna like cut somebody and it's like building up to it. She'll like, I'll be like, I'll tell you when it's over. I feel like I've overcome my parents in two things. One is scary stuff. And I don't do scary, but I do scary better than them. But when I was a kid, they'd always like be like, oh, you're gonna have nightmares, that sort of thing, and like whatever. And then second is spicy food. I've overcome my parents in spicy food. So I'm like, oh, okay. I'm growing up, you know? I don't know what's worse though, gore that gets built up or like slowly, or gore that just happens. Because in this show, we literally have people's heads just exploding randomly. That's just what happens.
So I've many feelings about this actually, because it applies to other shows. But I'm not a fan of when shows and movies, like if it's a movie or if it's like a comedy, I'm not a fan of them just using gore and grotesqueness and even like obscenity just for shock value. I think sometimes it's unnecessary. I had a little bit of an issue with that in Invincible actually. I kind of got used to it as the show went on, but like you'd be seeing him like in a regular fight, but every punch you'd be like blood squirting everywhere and arms falling off and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, he's a guy with super strength. I didn't need, like, I get it. He punches them and it hurts. I didn't need the visual of it. Sometimes for me, I find it distracting. I'm like, there's a lot going on all at once. And in The Boys, if it's a case of like, oh, Homelander's going down and he's fighting regular people with guns, of course, I'm expecting them to get sliced into bits and pieces and stuff. But like, if it's like, I don't know, MM versus God number 7, I don't need to see him like bludgeon him with his fist and see blood, like eyeballs flying out and stuff like that. I don't like, I think sometimes The Boys has a habit of like going too far for shock value because they're almost known for being quite a grotesque show, so they lean into it. But to me, that kind of, it's off-putting. It's then kind of trying to distract you from what maybe is just kind of a boring scene to like, we'll just do this to keep them entertained.
Yeah.
I definitely like agree. I think that sometimes I love the gore. Like I think it's funny most of the time, even though you're definitely not supposed to think it's funny.
Yeah.
But I also do think that they sometimes overdo it to hide the fact that like a scene is going on too long, and it's like potentially just better editing could have made it so you didn't have to do this. I would love to know how much of their budget goes to fake blood. That stuff's expensive. I did theater in college. We did Carrie at one point. You have to dump a bunch of fake blood. Like that stuff's expensive. It's a big part of their budget, I'm sure.
Is it practical effects? You think the blood is practical?
I think some of it, but not all of it.
I think the scenes where someone explodes, I imagine like it's VFX in the moment, and then the result is all practical.
Yeah,
but it definitely depends. Like some scenes you can tell that the blood is like very clearly fake blood, whereas other times it is definitely all After Effects.
Yeah. The scene in, is it Colombia? Where's that? The war scene.
The flashbacks? Nicaragua, I think it was.
Nicaragua. I just felt so bad. Like their own people like started dying and like, is it Stillwell? No, that's from, who's the older lady that's working with Butcher?
Is it Mallory?
Mallory.
Yes, Mallory.
Yeah. So Mallory's younger and she's like, that's our guys. And Payback doesn't know combat like at all. And and then we get, a shot of Black Noir with his face just messed up and like all that sort of thing. I was on edge throughout that whole thing. I do a thing though with this show, and it's really bad, and I don't recommend it to people if you want to be a purist about it, but I pause it and sometimes I'll like fast forward and look at thumbnails and be like, oh, this is where somebody explodes. Okay. And then I'll just go back and I'll watch it. I did that with Walking Dead. This is just my way of coping with things. I get scared.
I will say that scene in Nicaragua, that's where I don't mind seeing the obscenity and stuff, because the implication that it's war, it's that kind of like what you're seeing is what the characters are feeling. Like it's just destruction, death, blood, gore. Like you're seeing it through Mallory's eyes. The trauma that's going on screen is what Mallory's seeing and feeling. So that made a lot of sense. And that was like okay with me. I mean, as much as like the episode 1 Thanos Ant-Man scene was like memorable, I feel like they were just like, we need a good way to open this show. But remember, like just in case people don't like episode 1, we need people talking about it to get them to watch episode 2. Like, really and truly, it was just a scene of them fighting an Ant-Man character. Did I need to see how creative that scene was going to be beforehand? I don't know. It was a funny scene. I found it funny, but like it's an example of like that was just to make people go to make me shocked, I guess. Didn't feel like it served the narrative purpose.
No, yeah. The funny scene to me is the scene after that where he's small and Frenchie's like, he's trying to get in my ass.
Yeah, that was funny.
That's funny to me. The explosion part, no.
Yeah, and then him being like knocked out because he falls into the cocaine. I thought it was
yeah. Yeah. Well, I thought he was just gonna die. I was like, oh, because that's a room's worth of, like, if my old room was filled, like, that's the bag, right? Oh.
Yeah, you could have easily OD'd.
Yeah.
That was, I found that, those little parts of it were charming and stuff like that. A different way to kind of show the how would you fight Ant-Man concept.
Just get a bag of cocaine.
I mean, like, in the context of the voice, it's hilarious. Like, oh, this guy's like smoking, he's, snorting cocaine the entire time.
Yeah.
What if he just got shoved in it? Like, what would the reaction be if you were tiny and had that level of drugs all around you?
Yeah. And then he dies later at the at Herogasm.
At Herogasm, yeah.
Somebody said online that like Homelander has super hearing. He heard Termite ask for help and then he just squashed him.
Yeah. That was definitely intentional.
Yeah. Two characters that definitely have their own plots during this whole thing that we have yet to touch on. A-Train is one. And then the Deep is the other. But let's talk A-Train.
Yes.
A-Train, Blue Hawk, A-Train's brother.
I have mixed feelings on how they did A-Train this season. Part of me feels, I don't know. What they did with him was intentional, but I feel like a little bit exploitative at the same time. Of the whole, how do we write a black hero character in this realistic world? Well, it has to be something to do with racism. Let's just get a Black Lives Matter allegory. And it comes back to the whole idea of things in season 1 were subtle, things in season 3 were like on the nose. Like him just, the Blue Hawk yelling, "Suits Lives Matter," and him, paralyzing someone during a protest and stuff like that. All of it was very, I don't know. Is it not a narrative I wanted them to like just force upon A-Train as just the token black character of the team? So I found that quite jarring. Anytime a scene came to A-Train, I was just like rolling my eyes, waiting for it to end most of the time. I did like the scene of him dragging Blue Hawk through the ground. That was just visually, I thought it was a really cool scene to see. And I just, throughout the show, I like how creative they're being with traditional powers. Like, what if the Flash did this? And I like looking at that sort of stuff. But yeah, no, A-Train, a lot of his like, I'm trying to be a better black hero thing just felt very forced. And a lot of the black community can attest. We know people that are like that. Where it's like, oh, I know, I'm gonna, pretend and put on a facade of like I'm a black guy that cares about the black community, so I'm gonna do all of these things that seem, performative and stuff like that. But when it comes to the real issues, you make mistake after mistake, and I don't know. It hit a little too close to home for me, and I'm tired of black characters having to be forced into the racism plot every single time. So that got exhausting.
Yeah, that's fair.
I agree. I think they were trying really hard to make like a point about the commodification of identity and how like so many people and like so much art now, people are trying to like be like, you should care about this art because the artist is X, Y, and Z like marginalized identity. Mm-hmm. And that like that is kind of like something that is happening in the real world. But I just feel like I agree. I think that like it was like shoehorned in. I feel like it felt out of place and it felt not like satire is supposed to be productive. And I feel like the way they went about it was not at all productive. But I do think that like one point that I think was interesting is that this is a show by and large part about revenge. Almost every character is driven by revenge in some way. And now A-Train is like the only character we have seen successfully get revenge. So far, everyone else has failed. And I thought that it was really like interesting the fact that they did their revenge plot for A-Train. And instead of having him have his moment where he's like, yeah, like I killed him, we win. Instead, immediately it's like his brother's like, I never want to see you again because this was like a horrible thing to do. And this was not helpful. It was not productive. Like get out of my life. I think that like that was very interesting because when you have a show that is all just revenge fantasy after revenge fantasy, the audience often wants to see that revenge fulfilled, and we don't necessarily think about the day after the revenge is over, where that leaves you. Yeah. So I do think within his plot that I agree was kind of like not great this season. I think that was like a shining moment that he did get to have, where we got to see how revenge actually plays out in this universe and how it's not always a good thing.
I like the way it ended as far as like the dragging and I never thought to myself, for some reason, yeah, his brother would say, I don't want a murderer around my daughter. Like, I feel like that was like a clear, concise point. I don't want you around. You're a murderer. I don't want a murderer near my daughter. Not that you would murder my daughter, but you are a murderer. He doesn't even know about everything else, but like, that's the one murder that like he does know about. I don't want you near that. I thought that the Blue Hawk and A-Train stuff could have been written better, because you're like the Supes Lives Matter thing was like very on the point. I wish that A-Train and Blue Hawk had a conversation or even a fight. I wanted to see Blue Hawk throw a punch at A-Train before he drags him.
Well, I will say I don't know. This is an element of A-Train I think maybe they should have leaned on more, that they kind of went on the other direction with. When Huey confronted A-Train, to continue the whole vengeance storyline, Huey very much was like, I want my revenge now. And he had the chance to like really throw hands of A-Train. And Annie pulled them back. But A-Train's response, like taking a deep breath and just saying, I'm sorry, I'm really fucking sorry. I liked that element of it, because it was like he's now on the other side of it, very aware that his actions had consequences, and now he's trying to like rediscover who he is. That felt like a doorway to a redemption arc for him, and then they kind of twisted it and was like, no, let's just keep doubling down. He kills Blue Hawk. Now he's got Blue Hawk's heart inside of him. Now anything surrounding racism in the show is going to be ultimately funneled through A-Train. I don't know. Maybe it's a thing in media in general. Like I've reached fatigue about just if it's a show about realism and being realistic about stuff, then the black characters are going to have the short end of the stick every single time. Not to say that I wanted a redemption arc for A-Train anyway, but that felt like a very interesting moment, a weird switch of like, now Huey wants the revenge and A-Train's like, I want forgiveness.
Yeah. But
then they sort of just left it and kind of just went down the black community hates me. I don't know. I've got mixed feelings. I really think Jesse Usher, I think is his name. I think he gave a really good performance. Like really, really good performance. But I think just fundamentally as a choice for the character, I wasn't a fan of the journey. Yeah.
A-Train is not redeemable for me because he only cares about he doesn't care about the community. He doesn't care about right or wrong until like it affects his brother. And it's not like it affects his brother and that changes his whole mindset. Now he's different. It's just that he just cares about it in response to his brother. And he'll just go back to being A-Train. A-Train ratted out Supersonic.
Yeah.
Right? He ratted out. He could have just kept it to himself. It wasn't that he was afraid for his life, that Homelander would know that he confided in him. He could have just kept it to himself, even if he didn't want to be part of the plot. But he actively told Homelander to gain points with Homelander.
Whether he deserves... Oh, sorry, you can go.
I was going to say that I feel like him ratting out Supersonic, I think was a direct response to the scene where I thought was like brilliant, which was when he muttered like "fuck you" under his breath, and then Homelander from like the other side of the room was like, "What did you say?" I thought that put the fear of God into him, and he was like, "Well, I'm not doing anything against Homelander for the rest of the season."
Yeah.
I think that was the that was like a cause and effect thing. It was like, I cannot even pretend to lie to this guy. I'm going to get screwed over. And I think it definitely comes full circle when he finds out what happens to the Black Noir. Black Noir held a secret and he kind of suffered the consequences. I'm not saying that was the best narrative decision, but as far as A-Train's response to all of it, I think he's starting to kind of worry that he's blurring the lines between him and the Deep, because they are both basically just like doing what they need to do for their own survival.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Tara.
I was just going to say, whether he deserves a redemption arc or not, I do feel like the way they wrote this season is lending itself to the idea that I feel like he's going to get a redemption arc next season. Whether it's fully redeemed or it just becomes a enemy of my enemy is my friend situation, I don't know. But I do feel like they've left him in a position where he has nothing to lose, because all he cared about was his own fame and his brother, and now he's lost his brother. So like he really... And Homelander is constantly like belittling him and like threatening to kick him off the team for like being fat. Like it's I feel like it might be lending itself towards the idea that like there's only so much he can lose. And we've talked like Homelander's thing is like, when I have nothing to lose, I'm scary. I feel like when A-Train's is like, I have nothing to lose, maybe for once I'll actually be a good person, is how I kind of see it going. And I feel like next season there might be kind of a team up of him trying to help take down Homelander.
I think it'd be really poetic if he... First of all, I think as far as anyone taking out Homelander now that like sort of Soldier Boy is sort of kind of... he's still around, but he's sort of off the table.
Yeah.
Maeve's off the table. In terms of like powerhouses to challenge him, Butcher's not really going to have the powers anymore. Maeve's gone. Soldier Boy's in the wind. Stormfront's gone. I think the next one that... if giving his full power back now that he has Blue Hawk's heart and stuff like that, I think you maximize a character with his abilities, he could put some hands on Homelander. Like, there's always been that case, that argument between like who would actually win in a fight, the Flash or Superman, because you utilize super speed well enough. I feel like I can see a scene where you know A-Train finally gets some payback on Homelander for all of the times that he's been screwed over, to be like, okay, yeah, you're fat, you're slow, you're this, you're that. A-Train at maximum power and at maximum speed. I felt that as much as I don't like A-Train, it would be satisfying to see him kind of get that full circle moment.
I'm calling it that A-Train is going to die in a fight with Homelander with heat vision versus his super speed. He's going to run into the heat vision.
Oof. I'd like if he does die, I'd like to see, it'd be kind of weird and again poetic. I think I'd like to see his final act be to save Huey's life or to do something in relation to Huey, because that seems to be the catalyst of the entire show, really. Right? It was what happened to Robin, and like I said, I really enjoyed his deep breath moment where it felt like he genuinely was sorry for what happened, and there was a level of that also is why I do think he will get a redemption arc. As much as I don't want him to, like him kind of feeling regret for his decisions, maybe feel like, okay, I don't like it, but I can see where we're going with this. Maybe he'll do like an 11th hour thing and be like, all right, Huey's the, you know, as far as the show goes, his original sin. So it's like him trying to protect Huey and kind of showing Huey that, like, all right, just because people have done horrible things doesn't mean that every decision they make is going to be horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if not Huey, I could also see him potentially saving Starlight to then do the complete parallel of, well, I killed one of your girlfriends, but I saved the other one. But I do agree. I could definitely, I really think that he might get a redemption moment next season that will ultimately end with him dying to save someone else.
Yeah. Because A-Train, by the way, doesn't love anyone. He doesn't like he has no friends. He has nobody except his brother. Like, Popclaw, he ends up killing, right? In season 1. That's his girlfriend that he makes her OD on V, right? Was that what happens? And so he doesn't have anyone. He's willing to kill his girlfriend. He doesn't have anyone. He just has his brother. And even then, he doesn't treat his brother nicely at all. Like, he's alone in everything that he does. And so, yeah, this might be the beginning of the end for him. The Deep was nasty. The Deep was just...
The Deep.
The Deep was just... so many things.
You know what's so funny about The Deep? I have no way of interpreting... Zara, you might have to take this one, because I have no way of interpreting his character or what the where his character is going, other than him being just a weird piece of satire on the show. Not a bad one. Like, he's there. I'm like, his gross scenes make me laugh every time. And he is kind of just an insufferable kiss ass. But other than that, I'm like, what? You know, every other character, there's a level of, you can see their arc, you can see what the character's supposed to represent. I have no idea what the Deep's supposed to even be on this show, other than just a very weird guy.
In season 3, right? Because season 1 and 2, like, he's the aggressor, and then he gets aggressed against, right? Like,
yeah. This one is it's obviously it's him trying to regain his sort of recognition back and be like, I deserve to be here, kind of a thing. But I don't know. The minute every time he and his weird wife comes on screen, I'm just like, okay. I can't get a grasp of what they're trying to tell me here with this character.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I feel like, if anything, at this point, he's like comic relief. But even then, the jokes are kind of getting old because it's like the same joke every time. It's just that he like 98% of the jokes about him are about how he's attracted to all of the fish. And like, there's only so many times I'm gonna laugh at that before I'm like, okay, I get it. I don't need to see this anymore. I don't understand where I understood his like role in season 1. But at this point, he feels like an unnecessary character, and like a character who every episode I kept on kind of being like, I feel like they're going to kill him off because he serves no purpose. He's not even like a villain you love to hate. Like, I'm always like, why is he on my screen? I don't understand his point. And every other character, whether I like them or not, I get why they're there.
Yeah.
He just feels like a waste of screen time most of the time. And I feel like they have to get rid of him because what else can they do with his character? I
agree. I mean, I guess I don't know what they kind of set a sort of trail of like him killing the who was it? The other front runner for president, whether that guy's name was
drowning him in the pool.
Yeah, I guess making him do that sets him up to be important to the plot of the next season. But even then, like, anyone could have assassinated that guy. I don't know. Like, everything about him just feels like he's just a weird Aquaman joke at this point. And even then, like, DC seemed to be happy making that joke in a much more subtle way. Like in Peacemaker, there was just the whole like, he fucks fish, right. one-off joke, set up at the start, pays off at the end, done. This one is just every episode he's just having sex with a different fish, and I'm just like, all right.
What was more disturbing? Tell. What was more disturbing, fucking an octopus or eating an octopus? Because
the eating, because he's praying. He has kids. He's begging for his life. He is praying right now. I was like, that's a lot.
Yeah, and for him who like for the Deep, who is, I don't know what his actual dietary choice is, but he is essentially a vegetarian in the sense where he wouldn't eat fish and stuff like that. Just to see him have to like shove it down himself and like the ink, the oils coming out and stuff that was a lot. Him fucking fish just felt part of the course. I was like, yeah, of course he fucks him.
At least it's consensual.
Yeah, and it was very in character. No one's forcing him to do it. No one's forcing the octopus to do it. It was like he's in a romantic relationship with this thing. It's just the Deep being the Deep.
It was funny that he got out of the hero-gasm explosion with like he put him in water, right?
Yeah, to save him. And I guess there's a weird parallel to the first season where like he couldn't save. Was it a dolphin in the truck that died? Just watch it die because of the crash. This time it was like, not this time. I'm saving you, buddy.
Yeah.
I guess thinking about his role in this show, the only reason I can think of them kind of keeping him around is the fact that like his power is stupid. Without Homelander, like all of the other people in the Seven, without Homelander still have power and like could do things. Whereas like he talks to fish. Like I think he is the only character who, when push comes to shove, will never leave Homelander's side. Like he is Homelander's ride or die. Not even because he likes Homelander, but because without Homelander, like A-Train, still the fastest man alive. Without Homelander, the Deep is literally just a guy who talks to fish. Yeah. So I think that potentially the reason they're keeping him around might be the sort of thing where it's like, if next season is watching the slow demise of Homelander as those around him defect, he might be the one person who sticks around and still is enabling him. It's my only possible thought process as to why they are keeping him around at this point.
Yeah. Well, now his wife left him and it wrote a book, a sequel to his book, In Too Deep 2? In Too Deep? Was that what it was?
I
think so.
Where it's just like, talking about all the secrets and whatever. It's like in season 2, though, when he was catching up to the boat, right? With the sperm whale. And then he puts the sperm whale and they crash into the sperm whale. Like, he's useless. Even if his powers could be powerful if used right, he will never use them right. So he's just useless.
I think that was it was kind of a thing with the original team of the Seven. They weren't really intended to be a team of 7 powerhouses. They were a team of 7 celebrities, and they all served a certain purpose. And I guess his purpose probably was we're an eco-friendly team, and he was kind of just a symbol of like, I want to take care of the ocean as well as everything else. So it was probably ticking a certain amount of boxes. Yeah. Whereas like Maeve and Homelander were some the de facto powerhouses. We needed the speed stuff for like sports and athletics and competitions, as well as him being the A-Train being a black character. Yeah. Everyone served a different purpose rather than just being like combatants. Whereas now, I think Homelander's less concerned about which boxes everyone ticks, and he's kind of just like, listen, if you can't fight for me, I don't know what you're doing here.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see where the Deep goes now that his wife isn't there, because his wife seems to be his, where he's kind of Homelander's enabler. His wife was kind of his, and his wife was being like, just do what you need to do to get to the top. Like, she was kind of putting him in the positions to be in Homelander's corner. So without her, I'm curious to see where he's gonna go without that direction.
Yeah. Really quick as we wrap things up, how did we feel about the finale and how things kind of finished off?
I know a lot of people were like, I saw a lot of takes online of people being like, it was anticlimactic, that like pretty much no one big dies and like Maeve survived. But I will say that like I did really appreciate the choice to just like give Maeve a happy ending. I know in an interview, Eric Kripke specifically like addressed this, and he was like, yeah, like a lot of people are kind of like upset with me for doing this, but he was like, but I have seen all of the criticisms online of the bury your gays trope, and I for once like want to let a queer character have a happy ending. So I really like, that was one thing about the finale. I think that it's very easy to be like, the finale is anticlimactic because no one really important died other than like Noir, and that wasn't in like the final scene like it was earlier in the episode. But I think that like, if it came down to like killing no one or killing Maeve, like I am glad that like they didn't kill her off. Yeah.
I wish they killed Soldier Boy.
I knew they weren't going to, because Eric Kripke loves Jensen Ackles too much.
Yeah.
He really wanted Jensen on this show, and he wanted him back for a second season. But I do think that it would have probably been more compelling if they had killed him off.
It would have been super cool is if the explosion killed Soldier Boy, but Maeve was still alive.
I kind of wanted, I don't know if I wanted it. I kind of had the idea that like Homelander might die in this at the end of the season, just because I feel like there's only, even now I'm a little bit worried. I thought there was only so much they could do with Homelander being the white supremacist or the Donald Trump allegory. So I was like, okay, cool, he's in the 7, no one can touch him. You know, Stan Edgar was there, Stillwell was there. Stormfront was there, but once he got rid of all of those people and he was just like a tyrant, it was like, all right, well, I don't know how much more interesting you can make his character anymore. Like, I don't know where else they could take him. So I thought, okay, them killing him at this point, give me the evil Superman, give the evil Superman thing a break and give me a different type of villain. I thought would have been interesting if he died and then Soldier Boy kind of became the new big bad going forward.
Yeah.
That's what I was hoping to happen. I think Jensen Ackles definitely would be a great villain throughout, like a big bad villain throughout the show. But I will say I agree. I'm happy that they saved Maeve against it, also so that they didn't do the whole bury your gays thing as many shows always do and many movies always do. But also because I think this show and a lot of other shows like it, the ones that do the whole what if the Justice League were real trope that like every other project does nowadays. They tend to be really bleak, you know, things like the Injustice storylines, and even kind of to a degree Invincible, someone has to die at the end. These dark stories always just end with like, oh, who's gonna die next? And what's the next character to have a really tragic, horrible thing happen to them? To show that a character in this universe can have a happy ending, just with that, it sat well with me. I was like, okay, thank God. Like, good for Maeve. Good, like, beyond them, just being a queer character that survived, but just for a character to actually end in a good place. I thought the same thing about Kimiko as well. So thank for Kimiko. She's happy. Like, her having the end fight scene, like playing the music and just like accepting who she is. Like that. It's nice that the Bleak show actually does allow for happy things to happen, and it isn't just being bleak for the sake of being bleak. Yeah. You know what I mean? You have so many characters with such that differing personalities and goals and objectives. It's nice to actually see that the ones that have good objectives achieve their objectives, and not just Homelander being successfully evil every single time.
Yeah, I'm glad that everybody lived for the next season. Like Ashley, Homelander's assistant, like a great character. And the actress, I think Colby Minifie, does a great job with her. Because I hate her, but also like I like her. I don't know what I want for her. I don't know whether
I don't know what I want for her either, but I agree. Colby Minifie is excellent. Like her acting, it's probably one of the top acting performances on the show as far as I'm concerned. That remove your wig moment in the finale, that was like she didn't even say anything. Just her face alone, I felt every part of my soul break. I was like, oh, Ashley. Oh, no.
That was just, it was what? Like, he just came back from killing Black Noir and he's just going to humiliate everybody?
Yeah. Everyone on the squad.
A-Train and Ashley. Because that's what the 7 is down to the 4, and one of them's not even a superpowered person. And one of them's the Deep.
But it's interesting now because the Homelanders, the 7 was never Homelander's team. It was Edgar's team, or it was Vort's team.
Yeah.
Whereas now that Homelander / Ashley are Vort, like it's just them now as the de facto. Or maybe not even really Ashley, just Homelander being the guy. Really and truly, he knows he doesn't need a team, so they're just there for display purposes only. They do not serve him in any way. Like A-Train does not benefit Homelander in any way. The Deep doesn't really benefit him in any way. They are just there as a public face to be like, yeah, look at us, we have a team. We're the celebrities, we're so cool.
Yeah.
But really and truly, yeah, the real that was the real version of the 7 there. It was just Homelander and these 3 people that are absolute jokes that are just there to just further his objective.
Yeah. What did he humiliate A-Train? I forget what he said in that scene. Did he say something or do something or ask for something?
He called him out something in and around like him, what he did to Blue Hawk. I don't remember what he said, but it was about something about him like going after Blue Hawk despite being told not to.
Yeah. And then the Deep, he has to kill the other guy in the pool. Yeah. And then Ashley humiliates her. What do we feel is going to happen for season 4? And then also there's the Gen V spinoff that's coming out, which deals with, is it essentially it's not high school, it's college age athletics, but as superheroes? Is that kind of the vibe I'm getting? It's like,
I don't know much about the spinoff, so I don't know.
Okay. I mean, all I've seen is that video of all of them being like, Gen V's coming. My understanding is just it's a university set piece. I guess it's probably like a Vought University or something. I don't know. And then just following like superheroes.
Is it actually Vought University?
I imagine so. If it's Gen V, right? Like, I feel like if that the tagline, I imagine it's like an official school of superpowered kids, I guess, or superpowered young adults.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. I think they cast like 2 people from like the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, so I think they definitely know what audience they're after. They're like, let's get all of the CW-isms in there.
I'm scared, mostly because there's a lot of things I don't like in the comics, but there is like a teenage kind of thing in the comics where it's super gross. There's just super gross. There's a lot of things they do in the comics that are super gross with this teenage team that's supposed to be like the X-Men, I think.
Oh, right. Yeah.
There's the X-Men stuff and like whatever. And like,
is it the G-Men?
The G-Men.
Yeah.
And like, there's a lot of gross things they do with that. And so I'm scared for Gen V. But
I mean, the actors are good. I've not really watched the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I've kind of like seen it in passing, just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
And the Chance Perdomo on it, I understand he's like supposed to be a really good actor. And I can't remember the other actor's name. The blonde girl. I've seen her in other stuff as well. Like I'm confident they'll give good performances and stuff like that. And I don't know if Eric Kripke's also going to be show running that, but if he is, then I've got confidence there will be like it's still a relatively good show.
Yeah.
I imagine just the objective is just to target the somewhat, ever so slightly younger audience, probably the same sort of audience that likes things like Supernatural. When it first drops, like that sort of, the CW. I don't know. That's the only way I can describe it. But but good.
I don't know whether Kripke is an executive producer on it, but Craig Rosenberg might be the showrunner.
Okay.
Yeah, Craig Rosenberg is doing it with Kripke, Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, and a bunch of other people.
Right. It could be good. It's an interesting concept. I don't know that The Boys needed a spin-off like that. I just feel like The Boys is a nice tight-knit show that I think will eventually just have its conclusion in like season 4 or 5, and then that'll be that. I don't know. I feel like the spinning off just kind of feels like a little bit of a cash grab, trying to get a younger audience and keep the thing going so that they can keep Amazon churning out that subscription. Because between that and Invincible, I feel like Amazon Prime Video's main flagship shows now. Yeah. So I don't know.
I don't know whether it's going to be for a younger audience as opposed to being parodying a younger audience. I think there's still going to be as much violence, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? Like, yeah,
for sure. But like in the sense that like by younger audience, I mean compare The Boys to say Euphoria, which still has an adult audience, but in the context more of a a younger sort of vibe. Yeah. Because I say the CW, I'm saying it in the sense of like how Supernatural was. It was still adult. It's following a bunch of adults and stuff. Yeah. And the themes are still they weren't childish per se, but it was the kind of stuff that like it will have more of a teen angst, I feel, than The Boys does.
I'm scared. I'm scared. I think I was thinking about athletics because the working title was called The Boys Presents Varsity. And then it was announced that the title would be officially titled Gen V. So I don't know how they'll do it, but I think it'll be good. I don't know.
I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
Like, if it's terrible, I'll probably still watch it. I like bad TV.
That's fair. How many seasons do we think The Boys is going to go for? T was saying 5. You think 5 seasons?
I think 5. I mean, maybe I'm being optimistic. I don't think I'm at a point in my television watching career that I don't think most shows should go past 5 seasons. I think 5 is the perfect amount, if not less. Yeah. Unless you're like a sitcom and your idea is just really churning out entertaining television. Go as long as you want it. I mean, don't jump the shark. Don't do like the Big Bang Theory and just be bad. But if you're gonna go for
from
long,
the get-go.
Like say for example, like New Girl, for example, was a sitcom like went by 7 seasons. I could have gone for another couple of seasons of New Girl. I love it. I think that could have kept going. That maintained its quality, so that could have kept going. But like in general, like how long? What was Breaking Bad was 5 seasons before the spin-offs and all that sort of stuff. Stranger Things is ending in 5 seasons. Yeah. I think that my philosophy on a lot of TV shows and movies and franchises is that everything needs an end, and if there's no ending or if there's no good ending, then it kind of sometimes does destroy the show or destroy the project, because it means that everything you set up at the beginning has no conclusion and has no payoff. You're just churning out for the sake of churning it out. I think Supernatural nearly had that problem because season 5 was just such a beautiful beginning. I mean, 1 to 5 was a beautiful beginning, middle, end. And elements of 6 to 15 felt like they were kind of going that way. I think they stuck the landing, so I was okay with it. But as you're watching, you're just like, right, okay, this could end at any point now.
Yeah.
I think that it'll be 5 seasons too. I think, because also, I mean, Eric Kripke left Supernatural after 5 seasons. I think that one thing that he is very good at with shows is knowing when to end. The reason Supernatural didn't end after season 5 was not that Kripke didn't want it to end. It's that it was the CW's biggest cash cow. So they offered a ton of money to keep it going. And Kripke said, well, I had my perfect ending. I'm going to leave, quit while I'm ahead. And again, I love Supernatural. I'm glad that it went on for better or for worse. But I do think that The Boys, I think that Kripke will actually say, like, let's end at 5. And I think that he will find a way to wrap it up very well. And the question is going to be, does Amazon go along with it, or does Amazon offer everyone else involved a ton of money to keep it going? And that is something I'm not sure about. But I feel like Kripke, at least, will leave. If it doesn't end when he wants it to end, I think he will leave when he wants it to end. Yeah. And then who knows the quality that will go after that.
I think it'll end at 5. But I think Gen V will go on.
Yeah, maybe that's why Amazon commissioned Gen V in the first place, because they probably knew that the boys... Especially, like, I like shows, even if they have multiple seasons, where the writers have the ending in mind from the get-go. That's why I do appreciate Stranger Things. It's not my favorite show, but I appreciate that they knew where they were going each season. They were like, maybe we don't know the fine details, but they know where each character is going to be by the end, so that the story feels neat. I think Kripke did that really well. Supernatural, they knew where Dean, Sam, and like Cass and the rest of them were going to be by season 5, and how that story was going to conclude one way or the other. I think that's the best part of most shows. Like, I get sad when they end, because I'm like, I wanted more, but at the same time, I'm like, that was a good ending, and I wouldn't change a goddamn thing. There's plenty of shows I think like that. I think what would have been ending? Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I think, had a brilliant ending. As much as I wanted 10 more seasons of that show, I wouldn't trade that ending for the world. I cried my eyes out.
Also, the actors are gonna go on to more things. I want to see. I think I want to see every one of these actors go on to be, like, to do stuff. Like, I mean, people are already being like, "Oh, Erin Moriarty as Sue Storm, could it happen?" Like, people, you know what I mean? Like, they have a career past this show.
For sure. Jack Quaid especially.
Jack Quaid is the baby boy that people want to be like, put in everything. I would say Dominique McElliott. I got to do a TikTok on this because somebody was asking about it, but like, who would I cast as Sue Storm? I think that Maeve, the actress who plays Maeve, I think she's a natural blonde. Not that it matters, you do whatever you want to your hair, but I could see her as a Sue Storm. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I think Gen V could definitely continue and then finish this off in 5 seasons. But does anyone have any final thoughts about, like, where they think this show is going, especially next season?
I think next season they actually have to take Homelander out of commission. There's only so many seasons you can do this whole, we're going to take down the big bad, and the big bad wins before people are like, okay, he's invincible. We get it. We've lost hope. Yeah. But I also don't think they're going to kill him. I think they're going to do what he would consider worse, which is find a way to get rid of his powers.
I would love
it. We know it is possible to take away superheroes' powers because, like, Soldier Boy's explosion got rid of Kimiko's powers. And I think that, like, both he and Butcher view themselves kind of as gods. Butcher wouldn't say so, but he thinks he's above the law. He thinks that everyone else dies after 5 doses of the Temp V, but, like, he's stronger. He can survive it. They both think they're gods, and I think that, like, a very salient way to end both of their arcs potentially could be they find a way to get rid of Homelander's power. And Homelander had that whole speech at the beginning of this season with Butcher where he's like, we're going to go scorched earth. We're going to have, like, at the end of the day, it's going to be the 2 of us, and we're going to have the battle of the century. And when the dust settles, only one of us will be alive. I feel like they might take these 2, like, godlike figures and have them have the most pathetic fight the world has ever seen. They are both, because he is, if you leave Homelander without his powers and Butcher is weak because of the Temp V, he's dying. I think that, like, they both see themselves as gods and, like, really humble them by having them fight and have it be so inconsequential because they're both nothing without that level of power. Could be a very fun way to leave it off. And I think that it would also be a better ending for Homelander than just killing him. Because, I mean, we talk about, like, he's a white supremacist. He's also, like, a superhero supremacist. He thinks all superheroes are, like, gods and everyone else is expendable. So putting him in a position where he has no power is for him worse than death.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change a single part of that. Where that's exactly what I want to happen. If anything, I did kind of have that in mind to happen, like, in the finale of this season. I was like, well, maybe his powers would go away, and then it'd be interesting to see how much of a villain he could be without powers in the following season. I was kind of, like, I thought that could go down, like, season 4. He kind of has to follow Victoria Newman's kind of path of, you know, slow and steady wins the race rather than just being a tyrant. But regardless, I do agree that I think there's only so much you can do with Homelander. And I was kind of getting, even this season, I was kind of getting bored with the minute they were like, I'm just going to be a tyrant. I love Anthony Starr, but eventually I was just like, okay, it feels hopeless now. Every season has been, we're going to try and go Homelander, and then we don't. We're going to try, and then we don't. Like, they keep getting almost and then not doing it. But I agree, either him losing his powers or him dying or him losing the day in the most pathetic way possible would be the most poetic way to finish his story. Completely like strip him of everything that he ever like had, strip him of like have everyone turn against him, have his own followers turn against him would be interesting. But one way or the other, get him out of here. I'm done. I'm kind of Homelanded out, but I'm also evil Superman out as well. I cannot stand the trope anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I like what you guys are saying. I'm gonna agree. I like that. I like that ending for Homelander. Okay. I'm trying to figure out where Ryan plays a part, but that's. Oh
yeah, I forgot about him. But I don't even like him, to be honest.
I don't like him either.
He been in the finale. I was like, oh, for God's sake, goddamn child, you ruined everything.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I used to feel sorry for him, but now he's going down the wrong path, and I'm like, I don't know.
I could also maybe see them having him kill both Butcher and Homelander as his two father figures. That's not the ending I particularly want for either of them, but I could kind of see that happening because they're both abusive jerks to him, and have him be like, you know what? I don't need any abusive parents.
Yeah.
It's a possibility.
Yeah. We're interested in if kind of the tables kind of flip and Huey kind of takes the responsibility over Ryan. Because where Huey was kind of the baby boy of the last 3 seasons, it'd be interesting if Huey kind of takes on a father figure role for Ryan to try and convince Ryan to do the right thing. And so I don't, Ryan's still a kid. I feel like he's not he's not beyond redemption necessarily. Homeland is kind of grooming him, but I feel like it's not too late for Huey to kind of be like, hey, there's a better way to do this.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. That would be interesting.
Yeah. I think there's a lot that can happen, and I'm excited to see what happens. I'm also scared and nervous. Boys always does that to me. So we will see. I want to thank both of you for coming on the show and taking time out of your night or your day, depending on where in the world you are. But you guys have been awesome, and you guys always, whether it's your TikToks or coming on this show, you guys always have great analysis, and that's why I was like, this episode's gonna be good. So thank you so much for that. And let's see, T, where can we find you on social media? Like, what do you got coming up? Anything you want to plug?
You can find me Theories by T across most of the social medias: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, the usual suspects.
Okay.
As far as coming up / just happened, I hosted an episode of MTV Movies for the first time, first ever hosting presenting gig, which is pretty fun, and that's on YouTube currently. MTV Movies Thor: Love and Thunder special, basically kind of reviewing the movie, interviewing the cast. It's pretty cool. I can't.
That's where you're riffing with Taika, right?
Yeah, I interviewed him separately in like a whole separate video for my channel. And then for MTV Movies, my co-host interviewed Tessa and Natalie as well. So we kind of got everyone but Chris, basically. That was fun. That was a fun day.
Yeah.
And a good little episode. I if I do say so myself. So I can recommend checking those things out.
I need to check them out. Super jealous, but no one deserves it more than you. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, T, so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, dude.
Yeah, no problem. And Zara, where can we find you? What do you got coming up? Anything you want to plug?
I am only on TikTok as Zara Zahava. I do not exist anywhere else on the internet. And that's how I'd like it to stay. I don't have anything specific coming up. I post videos daily about really whatever I want. What you're going to get from me depends on the day. But check me out there. That's all I got.
Your TikToks are wild. Like, I have a friend who follows you, and then she made a joke about minion feet in response to you, and I'm like, I don't understand what this means, but I've seen enough of your videos and then I'm like, oh yes, minion feet. Oh man.
Immediately looking up minion feet as we speak. Fascinated.
Zara, tell me about the moon. Tell me about the moon,
the
Zara.
moon.
Because people brought it up. They were like, are you going to bring up the moon?
I gotta bring up, I think that we should nuke the moon. I have been saying that for 6 years now because in high school, this girl I didn't like, I overheard a conversation where she was like, I think that the United States should not nuke the moon. And I sat there and I went, yeah, that makes sense. And then she followed that conversation by saying, because nuking the moon would be incredibly sexist. That broke something in my brain because it's such a bad argument. There's a million reasons not to nuke the moon that are not, that it would be sexist. So then I made it my mission ever since then to convince everyone we should nuke the moon using equally good logic as she did, if not better. So it has been my thing for 5 or 6 years now, is that I have always said that we should nuke the moon. And the funny thing is she follows me on TikTok and does not know these are about her because this was like such an inconsequential moment in her life. She does not remember having this conversation, but it is a moment I will never forget.
I am honestly so fascinated at the like what this is where it started is already like, okay, yeah, so what if we nuke the moon? Then nuking the moon being sexist just brings up so many other questions. Like I'm trying to think of a metaphor here, but I can't. Is the moon a woman? I think
that was her reasoning, is that in a lot of cultures, the moon portrays like a feminine energy, but that's a bad argument because there is just as many cultures where the moon is like the masculine energy. So if anything, it is very like Western centric to be like, the moon is a woman, therefore we can't nuke it, because there's so many cultures outside of the West where it's not, the moon is not a woman. Maybe we just shouldn't gender celestial bodies. Yeah.
there are male gods, moon gods in different cultures. That's fascinating. Yeah. That's hilarious. I thought this was a scientific thing of like, maybe we shouldn't nuke the moon because then the world would end. Yes. Probably.
I mean, we see it in Umbrella Academy season 1, so we know how that turned out.
People always ask me if I watch that show, and the answer is no, because I know that it says that nuking the moon would be bad, and I refuse to watch that propaganda. That's propaganda.
That's a false narrative. Absolutely can't happen.
Yeah. It has the same energy as all cats are women, and all dogs are men.
they made that joke on Community, and it was like Donald Glover's character is just like, hey, think about it. Have you ever seen a cat penis? that broke my brain. I was like, well, no, I've not. And in fairness, I've had 3 cats in my life, and all of them have been women. So maybe he's onto something. I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for doing this. For anyone out there who was watching the live stream, you're watching us on volume.com/The Keeg Show or twitch.tv/The Keeg Show or youtube.com/The Keeg Show. Everything /The Keeg Show. Our social media is @The Keeg Show. So TikTok and Instagram are 2 biggest ones. That's @The Keeg Show. But we're also on Facebook and Twitter if that's, your jam, which is 2 totally different jams. Facebook versus Twitter. I feel like, but then there is a crossover. Anyway, whatever. Neither here nor there. @The Keeg Show /The Keeg Show. That's where you can find us. You can also find our podcast wherever you get your podcast from. So Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Maybe some other apps. Who knows? Those are the 5 that I can count. Definitely go follow T. Follow Zara. If they weren't convincing enough and you only listen to me, go follow them. But thank you, both of you, for coming on the show, taking time out of your night. It's been awesome talking about the boys with y'all. Yeah, that's it. Once again, I'm your host, Dimitri Pereira, and this has been the Keeg Talks, The Boys, Season 3. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Super Keeg.